and hopefully we get a couple more members. It being the evening of January 27th at 7 o'clock, I will call the meeting to order of the Bellingham Conservation Commission pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this meeting. Board members will participate in this meeting remotely, as this meeting will be accessible to the public via the Zoom online option. Invitation is available at the town website, bellinghamma.org. Moving forward in this meeting, the chair instructs the meeting administrator to withhold access to speak at the meeting until or unless such persons requesting to speak are visible on screen and respectfully request such access. Okay. So we're still holding at 5 members present. I will proceed with the opening of the first continuation. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposed drainage improvements to the existing interconnection and discharge of the Lakeview Estates and Silver Lake Road drainage systems located within a 100-foot buffer zone in Assessor's Map 68, Lot 10, at the intersection of Candlelight Lane and Silver Lake Road, Bellingham. Robert Poxon, Gary O'Halloran, Milford, Mass. has submitted the filing on behalf of the Bellingham Department of Public Works, Blackstone Street, Bellingham, and Salem Traders Way Realty, LLC, Corey Drive, Milford. The continuations will be held at online via Zoom on Wednesday, January 27th at 7 p.m. Okay, so, excuse me. I have to get my file. Okay, so we have Sean here, we have Frank here, who's our peer reviewer. The information was distributed to the commission. I have spent some small amount of time going over this, and I will admit I was a little confused by the volume of material, along with the timeline that was provided, and it was hampering my review. So what I actually did is I went back to, I don't have it. Yeah, I do. The drainage analysis and proposed improvement summary, Lakeview Estates at Silver Lake Road, dated December. And I coupled that with our peer reviewers' January 13th response to Sean Malone's response to the initial peer review letter. Okay, so I just need a couple of clarifications, and then I'll ask Frank a couple of questions. Well, no, normally I would have you do this for me, but I wrote my notes on the plan.
Sean hasn't presented this, is what I was saying.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a good point. So, Sean, why don't you present the plan for the site preparation and the drainage improvement plans?
Absolutely. And would it be helpful if I shared my screen to put the plans up?
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to get that.
All right, let's give this a whirl here. I think, Jim, I think I need to be enabled.
You should be good to go now.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so I'll start with the site prep as the chair suggested. So what this plan is mainly showing is the existing stone swales and riprap channels and stone check dams that were constructed out there as a temporary measure during construction. Those areas highlighted in the darker color, the darker black, are all the existing swales and check dams that will be removed as part of this project. And once we review that, I'll switch to the proposed plan. We'll regrade the area, smooth it out, create an even slope. This is about, I think it's about a 10% slope or so. And then we're also constructing a swale along the sidewalk here. And the reason for that is, in our analysis and observation in the field as well, we saw that there's runoff coming from the site onto the sidewalk and then running right down the sidewalk, ending up at the intersection of Candlelight and Silver Lake Road. So we want to take that drainage off the sidewalk and get it to where it's supposed to go. This area is obviously going to be disturbed. We would re-loam it with a screened loam, hydroseed it, and mat it, jute mat to hold it in place. We're showing sedimentation barrier along the uphill edge as well as the downhill edge. And this will help prevent run-on into the disturbed areas and help prevent any erosion of the new soil once it's placed. Moving into the drainage improvements, we're proposing a new catch basin at the corner of Candlelight Lane and Silver Lake Road. This would be piped to the sediment forebay and into the Basin C. So this would help take the burden off of this one structure. This one structure is got, I think it was several acres draining to it. So we're taking the burden off of that, catching the runoff that's coming off of Candlelight Road, placing this catch basin in a low spot that has seen some ponding to clean up that area. We'll be reconstructing the forebay, and in doing so, right now it's holding water as the commission has observed. So we'll reconstruct it so it will drain and then lower the basin, the berm here by about a 1.5 feet, so we won't get as much water buildup there. It doesn't need to be and retain as much water as it is right now. The basin has been redesigned to be an extended detention basin rather than an infiltration basin. We observed the groundwater levels in the monitoring wells were less than 2 feet below the bottom of the basin, so it doesn't meet the criteria necessary for it to be an infiltration basin. So we'll add a low flow orifice at the bottom of the outlet structure, which will allow for that extended detention for treatment, settling out any remaining solids after the forebay, but then be able to drain the basin. And then we'll reconstruct the pipe from the outlet structure to a new drainage structure here. So right now, the basin outlet and the Silver Lake Road inlet, water quality inlet, are connected. They share the same outlet. So we're disconnecting those. And from this new structure, then we'll have two 12-inch ductile iron pipes crossing Silver Lake Road. So in essence, we're more than tripling the capacity of water being able to flow across. Our analysis showed that in the past, the recent problem is this pipe was just too small for all the water getting down here. So that caused ponding and water to well up into Silver Lake Road, and it looked like pass over into the abutters land. So we'll be increasing that capacity to knock down all those water levels. And I think this would be a significant improvement. This analysis that we had we are showing that for a 100-year storm, this catch basin could overflow and would overflow based on the calculations, and then flow down into this water quality inlet. This is, it's kind of been harping at me as well as Howard Fafford. I had some conversations with him last week, and what I'd like to do, and I'll let the chair tell me when I should do this. I want to show a new plan that we've been working on to help address that issue, which I think would be a even greater improvement than what we have proposed now. But that's the proposal that you have in front of you right now.
Okay, so I'm looking at the inverts, and you've got 4 inches between the rim of the catch basin and where it exits into the basin, right? Is that correct? 217.5 and 217.75.
The invert of the pipe. So that pipe is 2 feet below the rim of the catch basin.
Okay.
And then it's a 4-inch drop from the catch basin to the forebay.
And that's where the surcharge would occur in a 100-year storm?
Correct.
Okay. So
Yes.
let me get to the simple stuff first. That structure, it looked like it was going to be an emergency overflow spillway. That's to the north? No,
Yes.
no, not that one.
Up
Not
here.
that one. No, not that one. The one that doesn't do anything. See, I'm pointing with my cursor at it.
In the upper right-hand quadrant of the basin.
That's it.
The upper right-hand quadrant.
Right there. Yep.
This riprap here.
Ah.
Yeah, and I think that's what happens. There's this kind of channel that was built in here. So there is stormwater that flows down this portion of the property and then runs along this edge. There's a high side and then a low middle. So it's a swale, and then flows up around this property and into the basin. That's why this riprap apron was constructed.
So did you factor that into your calculations?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay, I missed that. Okay. So I also have the schedule of proposed work. Now, just so that the commission's aware, when are you proposing to do the regrading and stabilization? One of the things we're concerned about is the limited amount of topsoil that's been used throughout the site for slope stabilization.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be sure there's going to be enough topsoil. And the question is, a couple of other sites as part of this project, we've suggested the use of tackifiers to provide additional protection to keep erosion from occurring. So if you could just address when are you going to do it?
So that area is proposed to be done at the beginning of May. And we would put new topsoil down. They would 4 inches of screened topsoil and then hydroseeded. And what we proposed was matting over it, jute mat to hold it down.
Mm-hmm.
If the commission would prefer a tackifier, I think that seems doable. But I think that this timing and as long as that area is protected, we also have the silt fence around the whole area to prevent additional runoff from entering that. We're really hitting an ideal time for this hydroseed to take hold and grow.
I think that's probably adequate. What we would do is we would, of course, get progress reports. And if it looks like we have areas where erosion has occurred, then as long as we address them immediately, I think we'd be okay with that.
Yes, and one thing I would point out to that effect is with our meeting with the zoning board a couple weeks ago, they gave us a condition to hire on the town's behalf, BSC Group to provide construction inspection during this process as outlined in this schedule. So they'll be involved as the town's engineer to review and report back to the town.
Okay. So I had another question back to the previous plan. Okay, now you've got two pipes going into the discharge point on what was previously lot 10, and they're off to the northern side of that swale.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I may have missed it, but in your details, I did not see a vertical profile.
Correct. Yep. I have not provided you a profile, but I certainly can do that.
Sure, because I want to make sure, because now what we're doing, well, you know what we're doing. We're putting both the discharge points closer to the edge of the swale. We want to make sure that the grading there will be sufficient to contain it.
Yes. Gotcha.
Okay.
Is there any plan to regrade that swale so that it's actually level, or is it going to continue to be pitched to one side?
No, we looked at this in the field and the swale was in good shape. It was stable. I'd be hesitant to propose any work there to disturb that area.
I think what Neil's getting at is left to right rather top to bottom as we're looking at the plan. It
Can you
seems
illustrate where that swale is?
there you go.
There you go.
And I think what we found in the field, Neil, was that they had made a previous correction that leveled it off some, but now we'll have an opportunity, you know, when they proceed with the installation of the second pipe and they slide that head wall over, you can see the additional riprap that's being proposed. We'll make sure that, you know, from north to south, if you will, the narrow part is level. Because at one point it was substantially pitched to the north.
Okay.
To the east.
Well, actually,
To the plan right. I'm hearing.
for the plan right.
Plan right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And just to clarify, we're not removing the existing head wall there because that pipe outlet will remain to discharge the Silver Lake Road drainage. So we'll be constructing a new head wall right next to it.
Oh.
So, Mr. Chair, just so we're understanding, the existing head wall has how big a pipe, Sean, coming out of it?
It was
A 10-inch pipe.
And we're going to add next to that another head wall with two more 10-inch pipes?
Two 12-inch pipes.
Two 12-inch. So we're going with a total volume that's increasing, while at the same time at the bottom end of that plan, we talk about restoring the 25-foot no disturb. So we're shortening the amount of riprap that's there. I thought in our site walks, Mr. Chair, that we had talked about the possibility of pulling the whole head wall back to give more time for the dissipation of the outflow of the existing flow that we've had. And while it may be coming out slower because of the way it's being repiped, there's still going to be the same volume, if not more, because now we're taking stuff off the road that might have been ponding at the intersection of Silver Lake and Candlestick and putting that into a pipe, which is also feeding over there, even if it's not gushing out. I got a real concern that there's just going to be too much water for that when we're shortening the bottom end, and we don't want to get sedimentation down up against our newly restored no disturb zone.
Yeah, and I guess my thought on that, I hadn't heard that before. I don't think that there's any real magic to why the discharge has to be here versus moving it back 20 feet or so. If I'm understanding you correctly, that's what you're talking about.
Well, that's what I think the commission had observed and speculated on the possibilities of. I'm not an engineer. I couldn't speak to that, whether really that does make a difference. But from what we saw and heard from the neighbors when there were rainstorms, based on what was coming out there, it wasn't working very well. And perhaps going back might buy you the space to have that extra dissipation. Again, especially since we're trying to restore the bottom end of that site up against the lake.
Mm-hmm.
Frank, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yep. You're muted, Frank.
I'm muted. Okay, now I can talk. Question I had was, when we walked out there a few weeks back, actually back in November, there was some question about whether or not we wanted to remove all the riprap at the very end, disturbing the area around it. Again, I think it can be done. Moving up the outlet pipe 20 feet, I'm not sure that's going to buy you enough. The area from the discharge point toward Silver Lake is relatively flat. It's got relatively good sized riprap. I think it would sort of slow down the flow going in there. And then with the pipes, the hydraulic controls really are the existing inlet on Silver Lake Road, the outlet from the detention pond now, and then that new, I think it's sort of clever, the sort of overflow. I don't think we're going to get more water, or we're increasing the peak flow rates, and certainly that's not what the drainage calculations show. I think over time we'll get more water from the roadway, more volume from the roadway into Silver Lake Pond or Silver Lake, and I think that's a positive thing based upon the drainage impact, the flooding impact to the neighbors. Not sure if that answered all your questions.
So, Mike, I think one of the things that that we haven't got to yet, and Sean was alluding to the fact that there might be another change. One of those 12-inch pipes, one of those new pipes, Mike, there is a drain manhole, and there is a catch basin grate in the drain manhole, and that's there at the 220-foot elevation. In the event that there was a surcharge and there was water in Silver Lake Road, it would allow the water to not pond on Silver Lake Road in an emergency condition. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, because with Silver Lake Road, where there's a finite amount of water that's going there now and always has been. The problem has been there's been insufficient drainage to get that water from the street past those houses and into the lake. So we're trying to create a better drainage system to do just that. Put more into the lake so it's not ponding up in the road and creating a hazard.
But if I'm reading that right, isn't that manhole that you were alluding to in the just above the north side of the, or the top side of the street, isn't that at about 220, and isn't the street at about 220 or 219? So isn't it almost basically flat? I don't see how it's going to do much in the way of draining off the road there if it's the same height or almost a little bit higher.
Right. So this manhole, it's about 6 inches lower than the road elevation, and about I think, what was it, about three inches lower than the low point of the road.
Isn't the
far
road
side of the
around
road.
Isn't the road or the edge of the road around 219, and that manhole just below the manhole, it's got a 220 for an elevation grade right below the manhole there? Am I
Here.
not reading that right? And
Yes,
you're saying
so-
6 inches below that?
So it's higher than this inlet. So the idea being is during extreme storms, if this inlet was compromised and not draining properly, you would get some ponding here, but you would bypass it. You would relieve that ponding before it extended across the road and into the neighbors' properties. That was the idea here.
Okay.
But you'd mentioned a different strategy. Is it related to this?
Yes, and why don't I go ahead and do that? I'll no need to keep you in suspense.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, Howard is, he's adamant. He's calling me every day. Say he wants to make sure that this fixes the problem. He doesn't want to be, blamed or anything for future issues. And I got to do everything I can to make sure there's not going to be any more problems. So in looking at this overflow from this basin, so this is the catch basin, the new catch basin at the intersection of Silver Lake and Candlelight that we had previously proposed. We've changed this to a double grade. It was a suggestion by Frank. There still would be some overflow out of this catch basin in a 100-year storm. So what we're proposing is, one, we're adding a check valve on this this outlet pipe, so we won't get backflow from the pond into the basin. And if that closes, the water flowing down Silver Lake, rather than going all the way to this single structure, we're going to pick it up just after our catch basin. Or if there is outflow from this catch basin, we're going to pick it up before it gets down to this inlet structure and then pipe it across the sewer and down Silver Lake to this discharge. We'll reconstruct this discharge with a little bit bigger pipe. So again, providing more hydraulic connectivity to get things out of here. So that's what we're working on right now. And I did want to discuss this with the commission and get some feedback. I know Frank probably needs to see some numbers, but that's our current thought.
Okay, so I got just a couple of observations because we, again, we've got a slammed agenda. What would prevent the proprietary structure from functioning? I mean, what would allow that to continue functioning? You've got the double grade catch basin. I'm not too concerned about that because you get the pre-treatment in the extended detention basin. But what about the catch basin that you're proposing there? Because that would be untreated discharge.
Well, this sedimentation tank really only provides for Mass DEP 25% TSS removal, which is the same as a deep sump catch basin. So it's really the same. But for this structure here would really only come into play during extreme storm events. Otherwise, everything flowing down Candlelight and Silver Lake will be caught by the double catch basin and put into the basin and treated and detained and brought around. So it's really kind of another belt and suspenders emergency relief valve.
Okay. It's certainly worth pursuing. I mean, obviously, as you stated, Frank will need to take a peek at the numbers. The concept that essentially what we would be doing was, for the most part, bypassing that stormwater structure. Under normal storm events, having to go into the extended detention basin provides the treatment we need. I think we'll need to see if Frank is willing to take a peek at that. Do you have any thoughts on this now?
When I'm back able to talk, a couple of just quick observations. And again, I would want to look at this more carefully than just an observation on a computer screen.
Sure.
One is I'd want to see what kind of a check valve that's going to be in there, because if it gets plugged, then it's going to block any water coming in, and that double catch basin might not work. So, I mean, again, there's ways you can put things in there to make them much less prone to any kind of failure, but that would be something that would concern me. I'd want to look at the grade change. I'm just looking real carefully, and the double grade catch basin, the rim is 219.75. The one next to it's 219.7. I wonder if there might be some bypass, and you could get some water going in there. Now, that being said, as Sean noted earlier, right now the water runs down that roadway, doesn't, goes into the water quality structure that basically is a settling type thing. So you get the sump in the hood, 25% TSS removal. So I'm not sure that's a major issue, or it's not. It's certainly no. It's the same as what's happening right now. And I still like the idea of the bypass swale, that even if it's 2 or 3 inches, it allows that water to go into that area versus going either to someone else's property or basically running directly into the Silver Lake without treatment. The numbers I want to make sure that we're not increasing runoff in any way, so that the same flow, peak flows, volumes, things like that get there. It is getting to be belt, suspenders, and buttons almost in a way here. So.
Okay, so, and Sean's gonna get us that, that profile to make sure that we have the grading there level from north to south, left to right on the plan. And yeah, because the plan there, I have a hard time picking up the existing head wall. And so, yeah.
Pretty light, right in here.
Yeah,
Mixed in
yeah.
with some of the hatching.
It's kind of incognito there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. If you could just darken that up.
Yeah.
But I think, basically, I think that your assessment that it's an improvement is correct. And I think based on the information that I read from Frank, he concurs that this is, we have a difficult situation and this makes it better.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, Sean, if you would proceed with this, do you think you would be?
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple quick
okay.
questions, if you don't mind.
Okay.
You want to get the plan back up?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So you're going to put silt fence all around the disturbed areas when you reloam and seed it and regrade it and remove those existing check dams, et cetera?
Correct.
While the silt fence is in place and the slope is stabilizing, where is that runoff going to go?
It'll just kind of pool a little bit behind the silt fence and then drain back around the side of it, or just slowly migrate through the silt fence perhaps, but you won't get a big rush. And it's not a huge area either that's draining to it. So it's just kind of an added little measure.
And the other thing, I had the same concern that Frank did on that check valve. Would there be some sort of maintenance part of the O&M plan or something to inspect it and clean it and make sure that it's operating properly on a regular basis?
Yes, we can add that, and I'll get Frank some more specs on it. And the unit that we're looking at does have a clean out attached to it. Extends up. So I'll get more information on that.
Can I chime in on the check valve?
Sure, Don.
Can you hear me? That's good. You couldn't hear me last meeting. Was that? Not even on you. And I think what's red valve sticks in my head, but I want it at the end of the pipe. I don't want it in some structure that we got to worry about maintaining. This will be ours eventually. So I want to be able to see it, easily see it. And if it's the valve I'm thinking of, it's really, it's just it's a flap. The water comes out and it closes back up. So it's almost no moving parts. It's just
like a clapper.
Yeah, well, not even that. It's like it's a pipe on one end, and it's at the other, within a foot, it's rubber that sticks together. So if there's any flow, it opens up, and if there's any flow against, it closes. As opposed to a flap that can get stuff stuck in it, it's less likely. We've actually used it at the water plant. Haven't got one anywhere else in drainage, but I have no problem. You have tied gates and things like that all the time. But I think in this, especially because it's a 10-inch pipe, that's a small size, I'm sure you can get it. And I think that's also affordable for them and affordable for us if we need to replace it. It's a very simple unit. So I'll try to find you some stuff on it. But that's why I think red valve is the name, the brand name that sticks in my head. So
we'll ask Sean to provide the information, and we'll make sure that it gets over to you, Don.
Yep. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
I think, Neil, just one other comment on the regrading. Right now, there are a number of swales that concentrate the flow. I think if the grading is as shown on the plan, it's going to disperse it a little bit more, so you're not going to have those concentrations. And again, some of the comments I had were to I walked the site, I saw the issues that are out there with regard to sedimentation, erosion control. And this is no offense to Sean, but I think there needs to be a lot of attention given to make sure that not only are the controls in place as they should be, but they're maintained, and that when there's a problem, it's addressed very quickly, so that any issues are minimized. So I'll leave it to the commission to figure out the wording, how to do that. But
We'll put, we've done that before.
They're
Okay.
good at words.
Sean, do you think 2 weeks?
I think so. I can get the revised plans and additional information we talked about, probably done end of this week. Get it to you beginning of next week, and to Frank as well. So meeting in 2 weeks.
That would give us enough time for review.
Okay.
Yeah, lately we've been having a little bit of difficulty receiving information 3 days before the hearing, and with the volume of work that we're undertaking here, it's just very difficult to stay on top of it.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, I will entertain a motion to continue the hearing to the evening of February 10th at 7 o'clock. No, I'm sorry, 7:10.
7:10 on the 10th.
7:10 on the 10. 2:10, 7:10. Okay, we have a motion. Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, by unanimous vote.
All right. Thank you very much, all. See you in 2 weeks.
Thanks.
Thank
Sean.
you. We're moving in
Good
the
night.
right direction.
Great.
Okay. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold public hearings in accordance with Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposed construction of a single-family dwelling with grading, utilities, landscaping located within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at Assessors Map 64, Block 212, Lot 81, 9 Lovers Lane, Bellingham. John Federico, Gary and Hellman has submitted the filing on behalf of South Center Realty, Quarry Drive, Milford. The continuations will be held at via Zoom on the evening of January 27th at 7:30. We're a couple minutes late, so hopefully we can catch up. This is Lot 81. I know that we've had some problems with Lot 81. And I know that there were quite a few questions. So, John.
Good evening, everyone. I do have some answers here for you, and then I'm also in attendance tonight is Alex Gao with the contractors. He'll be able to help assist with anything on the actual technical construction side or anything that's done out in the field. With regards to anything from the last meeting, I do have a couple of questions that did get some answers for it. The first one that I had noted was the filter fabric wrapping around the backside of the Versalock wall, as well as the block wall that we were proposing, or sorry, the boulder wall. After speaking with Wellington during our last site visit, I was informed that all boulder walls that they construct, anything greater than 3 feet in height, would be having that impervious barrier filter fabric located behind it. Also, they will be doing a type of a crushed stone. Alex might be able to share a little bit more on the rock sizes there, but it is something that is well draining. And then also to everything with those boulder walls 3 feet and greater, joints would be mortared. So any sort of situations where we were concerned with weeping or materials leaking out through that with any sort of backside pressure, that wouldn't be the case anymore. And then also to help with that well draining rock that is placed behind it, they will be installing drains as well along the wall. I'm not sure of exact locations for it, but it is something to help prevent any sort of water backing up on that side. So just to reiterate, yes, any sort of fabric would be wrapped around both the block wall and the boulder wall. As far as the second question was regarding with the material seeping through, especially at the joint in between where the block wall and boulder wall will be meeting. I was able to speak with Versalock a little more on that. I do have a few photos that I can show the members tonight where they have used in various parts of New England as well as the country a block wall meeting with things such as ledge or different materials out there. And then also too with that, with the boulder wall being mortared at the joints, that is something that we could mortar in between the block wall and the boulder wall. Wouldn't be causing any sort of structural issues. And again, just an extra benefit of not allowing anything to escape from the backside of that wall. But if I can get permission to share my screen, I can definitely walk you through a few examples of those as well.
Sure.
So first here, these are and is everybody able to see the PDFs in front?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. So I have here the first detail. This is provided by Versalock. It's something that they can stand by if needed for it. It is going to be proposed to cut any of the faces of the block to whatever degree or the shape of any irregularities that we have from the boulder wall. Again, any sort of small gaps in between would be able to be mortared. They do also have another detail provided showing any sort of fabric that can wrap around backsides of their wall as well as the boulder wall and how those items would be meeting there. As far as any photos, and if you do not see those popping up, please do let me know. We do have a couple of examples here of their walls meeting with other natural materials or other constructed walls. Is everybody able to see the images on the screen right now?
No.
Okay, bear with me one moment.
While you're doing this, this is a fairly complicated. This is a fairly complicated construction process. And, you know, one of the concerns I think that Mike had expressed was construction of the wall, the mortaring, and then the backfilling, creating movement. Now, this wall was designed by someone in your office, Elizabeth Mayanini, designed this wall. Has she experience in doing engineered walls before?
As far as the wall's design goes, anything smaller than 3 feet in height, 4 feet in height, wouldn't be stamped by a structural engineer. As far as these block walls go or the boulder walls go, that is something that has been used in various applications. I know Liz has proposed those in some situations, and Alex might be able to speak a little bit more on his experiences with it, but that is something that Fafford has constructed with success.
Yeah, this is Alex from Fafford talking. I've actually, I've built around 8 of these walls, and yeah, they are more complicated than just normal retaining walls. But the thing is about these, I know the concern was that we're gonna get into we're gonna just start disturbing the open space on the face of the wall, and that we'll have equipment running in front of the wall to build it. But the way these are constructed, they have the engineer will determine, they have every so many courses, 3 or 4 courses will have a geotextile fabric, which is just like a blanket that's designed depending on the load that's going to be on top of the wall and how deep it is, the longer the blanket is. So we're working from behind the wall. We have to excavate whatever material behind the wall instead of in front of the wall. So we'll get down to the grade that is the no disturb grade, and then we have to come up with structural material and lifts, and then lay a layer of geotextile. And basically they're like Lego blocks almost, where you put, we have fiberglass pins, and they're built by hand, and they just construct them from the backside, like piece by piece. And then once they reach 3 courses, then the equipment comes, they spread it out over the blanket. Again, we compact and lifts, and we work our way up like that. So most of the disturbance will be on the lots where the house is. It'll be minimal on the open space. The most we'll probably do is we have to dig and make a base of crushed stone, compact that, the width of the Versalock blocks, which is about 8 inches, and then we'll build up from there. So basically, we're getting down to the grade of the open space and working our way up. The biggest concern will probably be stabilizing it, making sure when we dig up all that, all the material on our lot, that we contain it, and we maintain that we don't let any silt out, and we have the proper like fences and everything. But for the most part, we will do minimal disturbance to the open spaces where those walls will be adjacent to.
Yeah, I think we determined very early on in the hearing process that all the work would be taking place inside the confines of the lot. I think some of the problems that we foresee are the proximity of the foundation to the block wall, being 10 feet, intercepting of the geogrid, along with the intersection of the boulder wall with the block wall, and then the increased pressure as a result of the backfilling against that wall. This wall right here, I don't know what's behind that wall. It really doesn't show us, you know, I mean, I see an intersecting wall. It could be a freestanding wall up against a pile of ledge. We have no way of knowing. But what we have here is you're constructing a wall and then backfilling it at elevation, very proximate to a foundation. And we're very concerned about the ability of the lot to be viable over a long period of time. Now, I don't know if Frank is still here. Is he?
So in the past, when I've done these, the engineer who stamps the drawing, I have, in order for it to be signed off at the end, I have to call him during the process. He has to see it as it's being built, and say that, yeah, he is constructing it to my design. And if I miss one of those or I skip one of those, I have to dig it up and redo it. Otherwise, at the end, basically the engineer needs to say, this is built to my design, and my design is on my stamp, and my stamp says it can hold this structural integrity.
So who's the supervising engineer?
And Mr. Chairman, to kind of help build off of that point as well, I did address at the last meeting some of your concerns regarding the close proximity of the foundation to the wall and any sort of geogrid that is there. That was something that was discussed with Versalock, since that is the closer of the walls to the building. Any sort of geogrid, again, it is done in lifts. Wall would be constructed first until it reaches the height of where the foundation would be. Then a foundation would be poured on top of any sort of geogrids. That is something that they can stamp as a part of their design. That is something that they don't have any sort of issues with, that sort of material being on top of it. Any sort of loads that would be placed on top of it are factored into those calculations. And Versalock has done tighter designs than what we're proposing here, at least on the Versalock side. In terms of the boulder wall, that's far enough away that that should not be any sort of issue to make sure it's well compacted to prevent anything from happening to that during the rest of the construction of that lot.
So the supervising engineer will be from Versalock?
As far as that goes, they would be having somebody on the structural engineer side to stamp the plans. That person would most likely be involved with that process. I know one of the previous questions from the meeting was Versalux availability during any sort of construction. That was something I was able to confirm that they do offer services where they can have a supervising manager out on site during the construction, or they can do periodic inspections if ever needed or hired by their clients to do so. So that is something that we can make sure that it is all properly constructed without any sort of any issues or anything along those lines with not being properly supervised in any way, shape, or form.
So I'm still trying to determine who is the supervising engineer.
I'm not sure specifically. It would be whoever Versalux has as their structural
Okay,
engineer.
so it will be Versalux.
It would be a structural engineer. Who Versalux uses in that case, I'm not sure if it's their personal engineer or if they sub it out to somebody, but it would be a structural engineer to stamp that plan. Again, any of the walls greater than 4 feet do need to get building permits. So they would need to be submitting those structural engineer plans along to get those building permits. I don't have a specific engineer, but somebody would be able to do so.
It'd be
John,
under my bill.
I have a question, John. On
Yes.
that Versalux wall, is that stepping down?
Versalux walls do have a bit of a batter to it. In terms of the actual design for it, I'm not sure. I know that they could be a few degrees. I believe with each block, it might step back anywhere from a 1/4 of an inch to maybe like a 1/2 an inch. I'm not sure if Frank or anybody might be able to provide a little bit of a better clarification for that, but that does step back slightly.
Yeah, that is right. It is about like a 1/4 to 1/2 inch each course.
So if it's a 1/2 inch, and we have how many courses?
That is something I'm not sure. It would be determined by Versalux.
Well, how tall is the wall?
At some parts, I believe the wall does get in heights of 8 feet or so.
Can you put the plan back on, please,
Sure.
John? Thank you.
So what that means is that the face of the wall, as it gets closer to the top, moves closer to the foundation. And if you're getting a 1/2 of an inch for every course, and you're up 8 feet, you could be moving in a couple of feet closer. So
Yes, it would not be a couple of feet. I mean, block heights are probably at least 12 inches, 10 inches. So we might be looking at maybe it coming back, 5 or 6 inches from the very bottom block. It would not be feet in that case. And again, that is something that Versalux does have no issues with their geogrid being so close to that foundation construction.
now I see you've got a drain on the bottom on your detail. But
Yes.
the drain looks like it's running parallel to the wall, and I see you've got aggregate above it, so the drain has to be perforated.
This is a typical detail that we have. Versalux would have in their structural plans a more specific design for it. Drains typically with these sort of walls do protrude out the face of them. And as far as any sort of spacing for those, I'm not sure. But if there were any specific concerns or locations where you would like us to try to discharge, we can definitely speak with Versalux to accommodate so.
I think,
A
Frank,
couple things maybe if I could. On the under drain, if you will, my understanding, my experience has been they'll have a pipe that runs sort of parallel to the face of the wall. And then every, 10 or 15 or whatever feet, they'll have a nut like a T-section and a little section coming out so the water can seep out the wall at that location. So I think that would be a detail. A question I'd have would be whoever does the inspection. So obviously they're gonna have to have a structural engineer stamp the plan and that gets reviewed by the building department. But would it be possible to have the person who is gonna be doing the inspection, structural engineer, whatever, provide a certification that was built according to the plan and according to the standards? That might be another level of protection. I don't know if the Versalux folks do that or not, but that would be something I think I would suggest you investigate a little bit.
I can definitely inquire for that. I'm not 100% sure if any sort of like a certificate of compliance would be needed. I know like from my experience dealing with like septic systems and obviously conservation-based lots, we would have to do so. So I would assume that somebody would have to certify that the wall was constructed properly at the end of it.
And I guess it would be handy if it's a structural engineer, or even better if it's the guy who designed it, but that may not be the case. I think Versalock sometimes subs out their structural design. So I'm not sure that they'd be the same person. If I can sort of go back to, I just wanted to sort of get a sort of scheduling of when the construction of the wall and when the construction of the foundation is. You mentioned that you're going to be building up the wall to the bottom of the foundation. Are you then going to stop the wall and then build the foundation? And then if that's the case, will you have enough room that 9 or 10 feet from the wall to the face of the foundation, will you have enough room to be able to build that wall?
As far as that goes, I believe Alex might be able to speak a little bit more on that end. Essentially, once it does get to a certain point, though, I believe that both the wall and the foundation would be built up at the same time.
Yeah. So we got to, if we got to get down to virgin ground, obviously, but we also have to get down to the elevation of the bottom of the wall. So we'll come up in lifts. Starting at the base of the wall. When we get to the level of the footing, if the geotextile mats or anything's intersecting or needs to be, which it shouldn't be, because with this design, we shouldn't be. It wouldn't work if we were going into the foundation wall. So. The geotextile should be shorter than the foundation itself, from the separation of the retaining wall to the actual foundation. But once we get to the bottom of footing, ideally we would get that obviously certified, build it up, and then either pour footings and walls and then continue up. Because I haven't seen a Versalock plan yet, but I would imagine we'd get to bottom of footing and then work our way up from there. Once we pour the footing, foundation walls, we have to do the foundation drain. We don't want to be digging through the mat, so we'd get the foundation drain installed and then work our way up after the walls are poured, everything's waterproofed, and we have the perimeter drain in, and continue up as we go.
Mr. Chair, I got a quick question.
Yep.
So if I'm reading this plan right, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, at the bottom of the, just to the right of lot 81 number, the
Yes.
corner there, it looks like the elevation is roughly 280 that cuts through that corner. Is that reading it right? It's kind of small.
I can zoom in for you all here.
Oh, thank you. Oh, a little too close.
Oh, sorry about that.
A little bit. Good, okay. So if I'm understanding, Alex, from this description of digging down to virgin, Alex, would you be digging down to the 280 elevation roughly for the bottom of that wall in that corner, the lowest point?
For that wall, it looks like we would have to dig down to 280, yep.
Okay, and I'm seeing, if you could back out just a little bit more, John.
Sure thing.
Okay, I'm seeing slab at 292. Is this a basement foundation house or just a slab, ranch style, slab, whatever they call them, slab style?
So from what I'm seeing on here, we have top of concrete 299, slab 292. So the slab is at 292, and then the top of the wall. So it will have a basement, but the basement, it will be around
is the slab the basement floor, or is that the first floor of the house, the ground floor?
It would be basement floor in that case.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going up 12 feet, building up the wall. After you've dug down to 280 in that corner, you're going up 12 feet in that corner with the Versalock wall, putting in layers or lifts at a time. And each lift is, what, a foot or two?
I would believe it would be about a foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And that would be contacted with any sort of geogrid and every third block or whatever is specified by Versalock at that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you've got to cut back to all the way to the edge perimeter of the house back there over to the deck, I mean, you're going to cut a channel, basically. You're not going to clear the whole lot down to 280, I assume, from the bottom of the wall below where it says area and the square
Well,
foot, all the way back to the house, right?
it depends on the design. If the grid, whatever the grid calls for it, because the more load you have on a Versalock wall, the longer the grid of the geotextile is. So the more you have to excavate.
So
But it'll be towards the house.
Okay, so I just want to picture a little bit of the process, because you do realize, Alex, I don't know if you've seen, I'm sure you've seen this before, to the right of the wall where it says PR retaining wall fence designed by others, that's the no disturb zone, right on that side of that fence. You basically are building right to it. So if you're doing everything on the left side there and you've excavated down 12 feet and you're building this wall up and you're trying to, as you said, retain all the soil that you're digging out to clear the way to get down to that level, on a sloped lot, I don't see how you can do it. It's not as a flat lot. You can just pile it all up somewhere else on the property.
I think there might be a little bit of confusion as far as the 12 feet goes. With regards to that, since we do have it on a hillside, we wouldn't be excavating down the 12 feet. It might only be a foot or two by where the face of the wall would be. Then they would start laying in the blocks, from my understanding from the talks with Versalock.
Right,
From there,
yeah.
as they reach a certain height, they'll compact and then start to raise up accordingly. So by the time we do reach the 12-foot height, everything behind it would be compacted to a solid base or up to the elevation of what the foundation will be.
And at some point, you're going to reach the foundation slash slab height, and you're going to be compacting in that 10-foot gap between the two that goes towards the road. And so you're not going to be needing to go over or having to go over or stand on the other side of the wall. You're going to work between that area, compacting to keep the wall lifts working without damaging the foundation, which is going in with concrete.
Okay, hold on. We're way over time.
Whatever.
But we are going to continue this. We have 2 hearings, one scheduled for 8, one scheduled for 8:30 for the Red Mill project. We're going to hear those, and then we're going to proceed to continue this and then do lot 82, 83, 86, and 87.
8:15 is, 8:15 is.
Yeah, well, when we get done.
Yeah.
All right, so, but I think what we're going to need, John, is we're going to need a profile, a side profile, so that we can see very clearly. I mean, you're going to have 12 feet of fill behind that wall to come up to the level of the slab. I want to see that in a profile. That's an awful lot of fill. But I'm going to entertain a motion to continue this to.
One item, Cliff, if I could just make a comment on that.
Sure.
I would be interested in seeing a profile of the wall basically from the street, because I think what's going to happen is the wall is going to be stepping up.
Yeah.
So that at the corner, the ground is 280, 20 feet away, it's going to be 284, and another 10 or 20 feet is going to be 288 or something like that. I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know that, so I'd like to sort of get some indication.
I think a profile will help us with that.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so we're going to continue. We're going to continue this till after we have another hearing on an 8. Okay, we have hearing at 8. 8:15 and at 8:45. So if possible, I'd like to take a look at some of these lots for.
What are you thinking, 11, 13?
11, 13,
Okay.
16, and 14, because we've already done the work on these lots.
How about number 9? Number 9, Lover's Lane. What are we doing with that particular?
We're going to continue that.
Okay, going to continue that.
We're going to continue
until-
that this evening
Okay,
to 9:30. So I'll entertain a motion to continue this to 9:30. And then we'll make sure that John understands what he needs to get us and then we'll continue this into February.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to introduce myself. I'm the new superintendent for Spofford, and I'm just observing your first meeting, and I apologize for being late, but I have never used Zoom before.
Okay.
Well, it took me a minute or two to figure it out, so.
Okay. Well, welcome to the process. Okay, so we have 4. I'd really like to get started. So, and I know in order to keep it straight, we usually open them all up at the same time. I'm going to dispense with the reading of the advertisement and open up the continuation for 11 Lovers Lane, Lot 82A. John, if you could put that one up.
Sure thing. Oops, sorry about that.
No, we saw that one.
So in front of me right now, is everybody able to see lot 82A?
Yes.
All right, great. Excuse me. Since our last meeting and our site visit, as mentioned, this plan did have the shorter wall. This one here is going to be less than 4 feet in height, pulled back several feet away from where the 25-foot no disturb buffer is. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was 6 feet from the buffer and then 5 feet from the silt fence. We also were able, with this plan, to lessen any sort of grades. And then per our site visit, we did push the infiltration units below the wall so that we would not have any sort of issues with water seeping through or putting pressure on the backside.
This looks a little more manageable. Commission, any questions on this? Okay, we've already conducted one review. We have inspected the site in the field. The changes have been made in accordance with need to adhere to the performance standards. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing and issue an order of conditions.
And I have a quick question, Administrator.
Yes,
Was this what one of the order of conditions that you sent out with the notes on it, the 14 points or so that were standard for the certificate of
for the order of conditions?
order of conditions?
Yes.
Okay. I think I noticed something on a couple of them. They're all the same. For the order of conditions, when you get to number 10 on the order of conditions, you talk about the split rail fence being in place for these.
Yep.
My suggestion was, while we say that the fence has to be maintained in perpetuity, that we, and it does say that originally about in step number 9 or something, that there are no disturb badges going to be put on there. I would suggest down the road in the long run, we might want to make sure that, I'm thinking 3 owners down the road, the fence is worn, they've replaced it, but hey, they didn't put new badges on, or the badges have worn away with the weathering, that we put something for future orders of condition. Doesn't have to be on this set necessarily, but something along the lines of no disturb badges should be replaced as needed to provide effective visible posting for the no disturb zone. Basically, they have to keep posting this fence, and so that, you know, future owners don't think, oh, there's just a pretty fence here, let me throw my grass clippings over the top of it.
Got it.
We can make it an ongoing condition
Yeah, just something I just thought of when.
on the certificate of compliance.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, any other questions? Is someone willing to make the motion?
Oh.
So moved.
Ariane, second. No, I'll second, I guess.
Okay,
Moving along.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by unanimous vote, I will open up the continued hearing for lot 83A.
All right, thank you for 82. Here we have 83A. This was one of the lots that we did have on our site walk. We did not have any changes proposed for this one here. Again, we just had a very small portion up by where the hydrant that we were able to see during the site walk that was clipping the 100-foot buffer. A little bit of grading was proposed there, but we are, for this lot, proposing a rain garden to help mitigate any sort of impacts that we might be having to the parcel B open space area to the south.
We did review these, this grouping of lots previously. As the applicant's representative stated, very limited impact to the 100-foot buffer zone. As a result of our site inspection, we had no suggestions or changes. Any comments from the commission? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing for lot 83A and issue the order of conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's by unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
Lot 86, that's across the street.
Yes, lot 86, in terms of our impacts, we did have the 100-foot buffer that crosses over where the driveway and some proposed grading is going to be. From our site visit and some past concerns during the last meeting, we are no longer discharging any sort of roof or foundation drain into the stormwater system. As far as discharging and letting it do an overflow over the land, we have revisited that, and we will be rerouting any sort of foundation drains to infiltration chambers. If they do have to be increased in size accordingly, we will make sure that they are done so. And then we do have the revision with the sump pit that is moved to the back with that proposed foundation drain showing tying into the roof infiltrators.
So if the commission will recall, we had concerns about perimeter drains tying into the subdivision drainage system, stormwater management system. We suggested the removal, and so they have complied with that. Again, the only buffer zone impact is to the front of the house in a very small region. Also, I think you show the fence. We asked for a fence in the back.
My apologies for not mentioning that. I do have a call out located right here for the post and rail fence that will run along the backside of 87, backside of 86, and also down along parcel A to separate that. And we also do have the detail as shown on the other plans for that post and rail fence.
Perfect. The post and rail fence that runs north to south abuts the project's open space. The project, the post and rail fence that runs east to west is separating the individual house lots from property owned by the town of Bellingham associated with high school, senior center, library, all of that. Okay. Again, was subject to previous review and physical site inspection. The changes the commission requested to meet the performance standards have been made. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, does the town ever require badging of any sort for their backs, like the backside fence, as you pointed out, is along their property? I know we do it for ours, so the right-hand side fence should have it, but would they want to see something on the backside there?
Well, technically, the only property that we place the badges on are either the no disturb zone or abutting open space that is going to be given or exchanged to the commission.
So parcel A would qualify, but not the backside, correct?
Right. This is town of Bellingham land.
Right. So I was wondering if Jim or the town has a policy of wanting to post it? Do they post it for when things like this come up?
Is Jim available?
Yeah, hey. So no, we typically don't post, and actually this location, I believe, if I'm seeing this right, is John, is this the access point for the trail to the high school?
Yes, I
Would that be-
believe that is through this area right along.
Yeah, that's the easement, I believe.
Yes.
So apparently the town will be creating a trail from the subdivision to the high school. So I think
All the seniors will be heading up that way to class every day. Books
Sorry?
in hand, cigarettes in the other, books in hand and walking along there.
so I think badging probably won't be necessary there.
Fine. Just curious.
Okay.
First time I've seen town property right next to parcel property recently, and I just thought I'd ask.
Cliff, it's Michael Connor. Can I comment on that?
Yes.
Certainly, Michael.
That's the cross-country trail. Originally, the cross-country trail ran onto Fafford land, and where they built that rock wall is the back of the cross-country trail.
Huh. Cool.
So that we do maintain that, and it should be noted, as such. I mean, we run races there regularly in the fall.
Well, Michael, you know my heart, it goes out to cross country.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. In that case, I think the question is answered. If there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing and issue the order condition for 16 Lovers Lane, Lot 86.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, by unanimous vote. One more is Lot 87, the abutting lot.
Once again, thank you for 86. And then for 87, similar situation with 86. Again, just a driveway and some minor grading that will be occurring within the 100-foot buffer. We do have some pit that is located in the back with any sort of foundation drain that is proposed to tie in to the roof infiltrator. We are showing post and rail for the portion that abuts the town property. And that was it for any sort of significant plan changes that we had since the last meeting.
Okay, any questions on this one? That being the case, I'll entertain a motion. This is very similar to Lot 86, the one we just did. In fact, this was a grouping of 4 lots. Much of the homework's already been done. Site inspection's been conducted. Revisions where required have been forwarded to us. If there's no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing for 14 Lovers Lane, Lot 87, and issue the order conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, opposed? By unanimous vote. Okay, so John, I imagine you'll be sticking around for the continuation at 9:30.
Yes, and thank you very much for these lots here. And I will be on to answer any further questions or just hear anything that you have to say for Lot 81 at that point.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. We have volumes and volumes and volumes of paper here. Okay. Okay, I see the applicant's representatives are present. All right. Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the notice of intent for the proposal to construct a new access roadway, improvements to existing roadways, stormwater management facilities, utility improvements, including a pump station located within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands, including proposed alteration of 150 square feet of bordering vegetated wetlands at Assessor's Map 45, Parcel 50, 6 North Main Street, Mill Street, and Common Street, Bellingham. Mark Allen, Allen Engineering, Charlesview Road, Hopedale, has submitted the filing on behalf of Dennis Rain, Bellingham Town Administrator, 10 Mechanic Street, Bellingham. The continuation will be held online via Zoom on Wednesday, January 27th at 8:15. We're a couple minutes late.
Mr. Chair, I have to accuse myself.
Ariane Barton has recused herself as in her previous place of employment. She did some work on this site. Okay. For the roadway. Let's see. Okay, Frank is on, and Matt Byrne, our wetland peer reviewer, is up as well.
I'm here. Hello.
Yep, okay. So there was a couple of pieces of information that we asked at our last hearing 6 weeks ago. And one of them was to Mark relative to what was the extent of the catchment area on South Main Street that would be captured in the new detention basin.
Any here?
Sorry, I may have lost the my feed there. I apologize.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what was happening because I could see you and you weren't muted. Okay.
Yeah. No, so yeah, so to recap from last meeting, we have revisited the site. We reevaluated the wetland replication area just alongside where the sidewalk is going to go. We have met with the planning board as part of their review as well. We did mention to them that we are going to be reevaluating the culvert system that goes underneath Mill Street at the end and discharges behind the last building on the left-hand side at the end of Mill Street. We did speak with that property owner at the end of Mill Street, and he did express his concerns about the routine maintenance of the leaf litter that forms on top of the catch basin. So he was very excited that we're going to mitigate the ponding that occurs just outside his front door. And we're actually going to also be looking into around the pump chamber system to add some sort of an infiltration trench or deep sump hooded catch basins that may infiltrate to reduce the amount of small amount of runoff, peak runoff and peak flow out of that one small subcatchment area. So I think what we want to do tonight is sort of ask the commission, get their feedback on the wetland replication areas so that we can kind of button up this part of the project. We have responded, like I say, to the planning board, and I think we're all on the same page there as far as the engineering items go. We are going to hesitate to issue a final set of design plans until we do get feedback tonight.
Okay, now, again, I did ask for information on the size of the subcatchment area for the South Main Street drainage. How much of that have we asked you to quantify the area that would be captured?
Aye. Okay. Yeah. So in discussions with CHA, the town's consultant, we have captured about 2.5 acres of subcatchment area that can be treated in the basin itself right now.
This is from South Main Street. This
Correct.
Is not from. Oh, so, do you have a plan that can show us that?
The hydrology analysis shows it, Cliff. We can certainly add the CHA subcatchment areas to the revised set by all means, but they did confirm that it's a 2 to 2.5 acre subcatchment area that this basin will be adding to the runoff that goes down this new Common Street extension. But yeah, we can show that on the revised set for sure.
Yeah, I've got your routing diagram, and it was unclear as to how exactly whereabouts on South Main Street you're capturing. I want to see how far up South Main Street we're able to capture.
Sure. So to quantify, CHA sent us 4 areas that were hoping to be captured in this drainage basin collection system. We were only able to treat and manage 2 of those 4 areas just because of the 25-foot no touch and the slope, interior and exterior slope restrictions that we were held to. So we basically picked up 50% of what the town was asking us to do. So we will be benefiting the town in their MS4 compliance with this basin.
Okay, so I dragged the commission out for a site inspection on the outfall of the drainage structure from Mill Street. And what we did find is that it is in a degraded condition. I'd like you to have your wetland personnel do an evaluation for us to determine if, now we understand that it was created as a plunge pool stormwater management structure. So as such, it can't be afforded the same protection as a wetland, but we'd like your people to take a look at it to see if it would benefit from being cleaned out, or if it would be more beneficial to leave it the way it is as a functioning wetland, because there is pollution attenuation in a functioning wetland, as well as, for the plunge pool.
Sure, absolutely. Not a problem at all. We did notice that there were some, cat ninetails that were growing up through the riprap.
Yeah.
And as part of the final set of design plans and revised hydrology, once we know our design parameters as far as the waivers go, we will absolutely have Jeff Derigio, who's on the call tonight, look at that area to give us his input as far as whether or not the rebuilding of that plunge pool is a benefit or a detriment.
Okay. Let's see. Before we get to the replication area, I'm going to ask Allen Engineering to do an evaluation on a relocation of the stormwater management basin to the south. Now, there's a large area behind Walgreens, and the elevations are similar, but the area itself is larger. The reason we're going to ask you to evaluate that is because it will allow more room for the basin. It won't be wedged in between the roadway and a resource area. It'll reduce the proximity to a BVW. It'll also allow for the gentling of the side slopes. I know that Frank had mentioned it, and we had some concerns about the steepness of the slopes. And the reason, of course, we realize that they're necessary is because of the proximity to the 25-foot no disturb zone and the existing slopes. Another thing is that we strongly suspect that there will be a contribution of groundwater from the existing basin. And if the basin were slid more to the south, then there would be a greater amount of resource area that would be able to accommodate a groundwater contribution. And it's also potentially, it could be sized a little bit larger to maybe catch those other 2 areas for the MS4.
So to answer that question, we did look into that area prior to this design and the previous 2 iterations of the design plans. That area is steeper in slope than the area that we have highlighted, and it's also higher in elevation. So the ability to capture stormwater is less effective in that area than it is in the area that we have designed now. We could certainly add a basin there. It would capture some water, but just based on the groundwater elevations and the slopes needed to build the berm around it, it would not collect a lot of water, and it would actually be higher than in elevation the lower basin down at the current location. It could be in addition to, but there won't be a lot of volume because it's such a steep slope. It's a much steeper slope, and in order to bridge that berm, would have to actually take up a lot of land in clearing and building the berm to get a small amount of volume.
Well, what I found, based on our ArcView GIS overlay with contours, the base elevation of your basin behind the town hall right now, I believe is 242. Just going to take a quick look. And the contours, I just want to make sure I get it right.
Yeah, the bottom of the basin that we have now, Cliff, is 241.
Okay. And so your contours end. But as you get closer to the street that runs perpendicular to Mechanic Street, it flattens out there. We paid attention to that when we were out doing our walk. I'd like to see your evaluation of that. You said you had it, a preliminary design as one of your earlier iterations. I'd really like to take a look at that because I think that this would, I just listed a whole bunch of benefits to it and I really want to thoroughly review and make sure that that alternative would not be better. It seems to me that running the drainage down Common Street wouldn't be much more difficult. It might be more difficult taking the drainage from the town hall complex, but I think it's based on the potential benefits, it's certainly worth careful investigation.
No, absolutely. No, we will absolutely look at that. I think it's going to come down to elevations. And I think, like I said earlier, we may be able to add a basin there, but I definitely know that we will not be able to eliminate the basin at the bottom.
Okay, well, again, I didn't have benefit of seeing the contours extend all the way across the property. I'm looking at an arc view that's, how that works. They're not that accurate. So, yes, I'd really appreciate you taking a look at that.
So if you were able to add another basin, would you be able to gentle the slopes and have a less capacity in this basin that you're proposing?
I'm sorry again, I didn't understand the question. For the new basin under investigation or the currently?
I think what she's suggesting is that if we were to use another basin, we could pick up more of the drainage from South Main Street and possibly make the basin behind the town hall a little bit smaller.
Yeah, based on the amount of flow that's coming that was requested by CHA, I hardly doubt that because it was such a large amount of water. So again, something to look into. We will look into it. I just can't promise you that at this point.
Understand. All we ask is that you evaluate that. Frank, did you have any comments?
Mark, if you had existing condition survey of that area, obviously that's much better than the stuff we're getting from the ArcGIS. That would be really handy.
Yeah.
And then even if it's conceptual evaluation of where the elevations are coming from, I think that would be a handy type thing. And then I think you mentioned you were going to put together a plan for the CHA areas that they were looking at. That might tie in that, though some of those areas may or may not be able to be rerouted to this other detention.
Correct.
So that would be handy to take a look at the whole picture.
Correct. Yep.
We're not asking for the impossible. We're just asking for an improvement if it's available.
Absolutely. Duly noted.
Thank you. And then I think the final item we had was the replication area. Matt Burns available. So if you wanted to make a presentation on that.
Yeah, so as, at least on my end, what we did is at the end of the last meeting, it was recommended to us to go revisit that location based on the BSC letter of where that wetland replication area was designed. So we went back out with Jeff Terigio from SAGE, re-looked at the area, and although we did not find a 3-to-1 slope in that area, we did note that it was slightly elevated. So what we did is we sort of slid the replication area, and you haven't seen it yet because, like I said, we're going to reissue another 60-sheet set after we get comments tonight. We did slide it away from the area of slope so that the likelihood of replication area plantings will take and make up for the filled area for the sidewalk.
So in other words, you're looking for a more appropriate area to do the replication.
Correct. We slightly moved it to get away from the slope that was there. It was not a 3-to-1 slope as previously mentioned in a review letter, but it was a little bit of a slope. So we moved it away from the slope to make it a little flatter, a little bit more likely to take for the plantings.
Well, it's a pretty big wetland system. And so I'm sure that, I mean, the goal here for all of us is to make sure that the replication area is viable. And, you know, anything we can do to make it viable is something that we have to investigate. And actually, that's what we have to permit. So any kind of slope, you know, I should have known better in the field, but sometimes after an hour site walk in the deep woods, you just want to get back to your car. So I didn't give it as much thought as I probably should have, but you know, obviously one of the first rules of wetland replication is grade, and you don't want any kind of a slope for the wetland replication. You want everything to be pretty flat. Matt, did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, no, I think that was our sense. It just seemed like as you approached the side of the road, it just steepened up a lot. So we thought that you might take a look at other alternative locations. The other thing is that right there where the wetland kind of hooks and bumps right up to the road, I think there's a pretty large stand of Phragmites. And so there's a pretty good chance that would become, you know, your replication area would pretty quickly be infested with that. So it would just be a problem for maintenance and making sure that you don't, you know, kind of have failure because of invasive plants. So that's just something to consider. So.
Okay. Gee, Mark, that's all I have.
Yeah, same here. And just one last item is the back slope grading of that lower basin. We have asked the planning board to reduce the slope of that fill from 3-to-1 to 2-to-1. It was the only outstanding waiver request at the last planning board hearing. So once we get that input from the planning board, we'll be able to finalize that basin. And in addition to evaluating the basin potential behind Walgreens, just to keep you in the loop.
Okay. I know in a very recent subdivision review that we had, we were a little concerned about steep slopes in basins, and we came up with a methodology to assure or to at least minimize the potential for overtopping and breaching. And we use the installation of a clay barrier, if you will, in the basin walls. Frank, do you think that would be something that would be advisable here? I'm not really happy about a 2-to-1 slope and a detention basin without a lot of extra freeboard.
So the planning board asked me at their last hearing to sort of put together a sort of some technical comments regarding this waiver. There were 4 other waivers that the planning board approved. This one was outstanding. And again, I think the concern is a steep slope. You certainly can build a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 slope. It's really the construction that's the issue. And that, again, I'd want to see a design that would basically maintain that. The other sample or example you gave was a relatively high, they were like 15 or 20 foot height elevation differences. Here we're talking about, 5 or 6 feet. I'm not sure the clay barrier is worthwhile, although again, it certainly could help any kind of seepage through the wall. But the other part of this whole thing is that there's a sort of related waiver that's before the commission about the freeboard height. And so it may not be as applicable here as it is to the Red Mill residential that we'll talk about. But again, I would be more comfortable having more freeboard if in fact we had steep slopes, because if the basin gets overtopped, it's going to erode more quickly on a steeper slope than on a flatter slope. And so that's maybe something that we might want to talk about now, or we may want to talk about more appropriately under the Red Mill residential portion that's coming up.
Okay, well, when we do the Red Mill portion, we're going to work through the waivers. That's the first order of business. Now, there is a rider on the town's wetland protection bylaw that exempts state or town projects from adhering to the bylaw.
Okay.
Now, voluntarily, the applicant has agreed to honor the 25-foot no disturb zone. We really appreciate that. I don't know if it would be possible to provide a little extra freeboard, or if during the evaluation of another basin, it might be possible to reduce the volume. These are things that Mark's going to check on us. Maybe a combination of those two things would provide a little more comfort.
Sure. I mean, if I would have, again, provided the construction measures were put in place, which I think can be done and can be monitored. If you had, say, if you maintain the 1 foot of freeboard for the 100-year storm below the overflow spillway, I would not have a problem with having a steeper slope at that location.
Okay, that makes sense. But, you know, again, this is something, you know, it makes good engineering sense, but it's something that we can't require by permit. So if we can work through that, like I said, a combination of 2 or 1, or if neither works, maybe a little increased height. Okay. So I think Mark will work with us on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any comments from the commission? Questions?
Well, if I have one, I'm going to say phosphorus for lack of a better remembering of what the exact technical terms are. Has that been phosphorus loading for all new projects? Has that been addressed? The town's not waived from that, right, for this road project?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, through
those has to be treated.
Yeah, just by the mere design of these infiltration basins, the catch basins with deep sump hoods, all of the best management practices, the operation or maintenance plans, all are credits towards that phosphorus removal in this overall drainage basin area for the Charles River. So all of those have been enumerated and accounted for.
So that satisfies our need for what the town has to do for that, to meet
Correct.
that part of it, because we certainly don't want to put the town in bad light since it's focused spotlight right, you know, it's happening right around the building.
Yeah, no, the town did a very good, and I don't know when the DEP may have came down on the town, but the basin that was put behind the town hall did intercept a lot of the impervious area in front of town hall. It did put it through a small sediment forebay with a riprap overflow into an infiltration basin, into an outlet. So the town made a great first, sort of catch of all of the TSS and the phosphorus. And this will just be belts and suspenders, because that will then, go into our drop inlets with deep sump hoods and more cleaning of the phosphorus, TSS, and all of the stormwater management guidelines.
Yeah, I don't know that the town, Jim might speak to that, or maybe Dennis or somebody else, Don, that the state came after us about it so much as they selected us graciously as one of the very first towns in Massachusetts to have to adhere to those practices.
No, we were proactive on that one. We got a grant for that. It's not that the state came down on us; that the state will eventually come down on us. So we went ahead and got a grant that's available to install that basin there.
That was good.
So how much water does that basin collect, Chip?
We could actually get that for you. That was a tie and bond design, so we could definitely get that for you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, in anticipation of the need to move this project along, I was prepared to continue to February 10th. Mark, do you suspect that will give you sufficient time, or do you want to go to the second meeting in February?
Let's shoot for the 10th and see how we progress.
And you'll advise, because we can fill the time slots very easily.
Yeah, I think after, another couple of days, we'll know better if we need to continue, but February 10th sounds, at least on this part of the project, doable.
Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to the evening of February 10th at 7:30. So that's 2/10/7:30.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by unanimous vote. Have to move around. Okay. Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the notice of intent for the proposal to construct roadways, associated utilities, and stormwater management system for the residential subdivision entitled Red Mill on the Charles, consisting of 109 single-family dwellings and 54 townhouse units. The proposal includes 247 linear feet of alteration to bank, 3,180 square feet of impacts to bordering vegetated wetlands with 6,600 square feet of proposed replication, 967 square feet of impacts to land under water bodies or waterways, and 117,892 square feet of proposed alteration to the riverfront area, including 17,969 square feet of the inner riparian area and 99,923 square feet of impacts to the outer riparian area. The proposed project is located at Assessor's Map 51, Parcel 13-1, Mechanic Street and Mill Street, Bellingham. Mark Allen, Allen Engineering, Charlesview Road, Hopedale, has submitted the filing on behalf of Kevin Levasseur, Snowflake LLC, Charlesview Road, Hopedale, Mass. The continuations will be held online via Zoom on Wednesday, January 27th at 8:45. Okay. Okay. Shifting gears here. Okay, the first thing I think that the commission needs to make a determination on is the waivers. I know you've met with the planning board on the waivers. And we have two waivers here that will affect the design of the stormwater management system. Now, when the commission developed its regulations, we were anticipating that we would need to have larger structures to accommodate more stormwater. As it turns out, DEP is now in the process of revising the stormwater management standards due to the documented frequency of much larger stormwater events. So the first waiver we can discuss is one that we were just touching on for the Common Street portion of the project, the town roadway, and that's the freeboard to the 100-year storm. Now, the intent is to provide an extra layer of security in the event of a large storm event, to prevent overtopping, breaching, and possible sediment and transport, and the need to reconstruct if there's a failure. Now, I'll let Mark Allen speak to his request for the waiver, and then I'll let the commission speak to their concerns.
Sure, thank you. And that's actually going to be waiver 3 on our requested waiver list, Cliff, but let's tackle it now. There were 5 waivers requested, 2 of which we have eliminated with our revised plans to date. So this is one of 3 waivers, and it's waiver number 3 in your packet that was dated or revised 1/12/21. So, and that section is 247-33. Section 3, where minimum 1 foot of freeboard between the 100-year ponding elevation and the emergency overflow spillway to those stormwater basins. The reason we ask this waiver, and I'll just paraphrase from my written explanation, is simply for a few very common sense reasons, and that being that the basins that are sized today are somewhat oversized just by the means of the factors of safety that go into the hydrology analysis, but also in the event or in the effect that the infiltration rates that are actually used are very, very low. So the state makes us use infiltration rates that are very low, as opposed to knowing that these sites are very gravelly and that stormwater infiltrates at a much higher rate, and that you don't get as much ponding in areas that have these gravel areas that these Varney gravel pits were. So that's one reason for the oversizing aspect of it. The second is that the Cornell method of hydrology uses an extra, I think, 1.5 inches at the 100-year storm event. All of the other storm events are very similar. The 2, the 10, the 25, and the 50-year events are very similar. Cornell University came out with a higher rate for the 100-year storm, which has increased the size of the basins in that degree. So that sort of belts and suspenders for the Cornell numbers made these basins bigger. And then the Bellingham conservation regulations have actually added 2 more layers where we are to assume a frozen ground condition for a 25-year storm, and that'll be the next waiver request, which basically artificially inflates the size of the basins again. So that's sort of a 3rd basin increase, so that we're actually sizing these basins to accommodate some catchment area that is basically impervious. It basically tells you that the entire 86 acres is frozen, and you run it through a basin, and that basin just obviously mushrooms in size. The 3rd reason we're asking for this waiver request is that the stormwater that comes post-construction is supposed to be a mirror image of what happens today. So in other words, you don't want to drastically change the peak flows of runoff to streams and waterways versus post-construction. So when we run our existing analysis, we see that a certain amount of water trickles into the streams and the rivers and replenishes those stream beds. By adding all of these belts and suspenders, you actually artificially hold back water from those streams and riverways and actually create hydraulic mounds underneath these basins. So it actually takes longer for those streams and rivers to get their water that was in the existing condition. So we feel as if, we're trying to, kind of walk that fine line of providing adequate drainage and replenishing the waters and streams and rivers in a way that they are today. And the 4th item for the waiver request is that these basins that get artificially inflated with frozen ground conditions and extra feet of freeboard just means bigger basins for the town to future maintain as far as mowing and cleaning and future operation and maintenance for the town. Not to mention the fact that these basins that get artificially inflated take down more trees and impact more square footage of land development.
Do we have any comments from anybody on the commission?
The term artificially inflated that keeps getting used for the basins, just, I'd like to make sure everybody keeps in mind the reason they're being inflated, artificially or not, is because of the artificial changes to man-made changes to the site. So the more construction you have, the more impact, the more water running off from impervious surfaces and so forth, the more you may need to attenuate those. And I think that the not recent, but the Conservation Commission's particular requirement for frozen ground conditions is a really good one, since just from a common sense point of view, if the basin's frozen, it doesn't matter really how big it is. It's not gonna absorb any of the water, gravelly or not, surfaces from previous graveling operations and so forth. And therefore you need to have a quote unquote artificially large inflated size basin to avoid damage to both the environment as well as the frankly the houses that are built right around it. So.
Mike, I understand, there are 3 waivers that are being requested. Let's just try to concentrate on the 100-year storm event.
So just to back up Mike's question about or impact of the artificially inflated sizes, basically since Bellingham has adopted these regulations, we have done 3 or 4 projects in town, and we have been monitoring those 3 or 4 projects. And just as recently as Christmas Day, when we got about 3 inches of rain and had a foot of snow on the ground, we went around to the Crystal Springs basins, the Lincoln Properties basins next door, the Julia Drive basins. We photographed them all and looked at the numbers that were called for in designs, and they were a fraction full compared to what the hydrology analysis shows. So these are real in-town empirical data that we're using. In fact, the Lincoln Properties right next door, which held all of your standards, was supposed to come up about 2.5 feet on Christmas Day, and it barely had a skim coat of water on the bottom, and there wasn't any water even entering the basin.
Was the drainage from Mechanic Street connected at that time?
Yes.
But we're not talking about that particular basin. We're talking about a subdivision here in Bellingham that you're gonna have a lot of houses on, and a lot of houses and a lot of roadway, and it's something that the board.
With all due respect, Ann, engineering-wise, it was designed exactly per your regulations and sized accordingly, so it's apples to apples.
And you know that there is that basin does not hold a stormwater. It retains it for a brief period of time, and then it's infiltrated under the site.
Yeah, we've been in direct contact with them. We've been working hand in hand with the Lincoln Properties project because we do connect to that basin. So we have all the hydrology analysis, and the numbers that we have basically show that it's a fraction of the amount of water in reality sits at the bottom of that basin compared to the design elevations shown both in VHB's analysis and our analysis. We have all the photos to back that up. It's empirical, today's date. It's stuff that's in Bellingham, recently approved under the regulations that we wanted to show you.
Okay.
Are there any other comments on the freeboard to the 100-year storm?
And just to reiterate, the Julia Drive subdivision, also that was called to have 3 or 4 feet of water in it, didn't have any water in it. And the Macy Estates subdivision that had an underground system that was supposed to be flowing, at half pipe capacity was barely trickling out. So it's not just one instance, it's 4 instances around town recently.
Well, I don't know anything about the Macy Estates one. We did not participate in the development of that. Of Julia. Or Julia. So we don't know those particular properties.
Understood.
So those original calculations on all those basins were that far off?
Yes, that's how they're exaggerated. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying artificially inflated. It's just, it's belts and suspenders, Neil. It's basically, you know, the calculations that you use, the assumptions that you make, how much water will infiltrate through the bottom of those basins. DEP caps a limit on what you can use for an infiltration rate. So even if it's in, you know, soils that are tight or soils that are gravelly, the gravelly soils get penalized because you can only use a 2.41 infiltration rate. So like I say, you know, the Varney properties that are traditionally gravel material get penalized, and those properties see basins that are grossly exaggerated.
Frank, do you have any comments on that?
So, I mean, I would like to see the information that Mark has put together on those basins, but my experience has been, you know, what happens in real life very often isn't what is tied to the model that we are required to use by DEP and other folks. So in a previous incarnation, I did a bunch of flood studies for FEMA and other people over the years. And the example I'll use from that is that in, I think it was Woodstock, Vermont, if I remember right, the largest flood didn't occur during a rainfall, it occurred during an ice jam that blocked up the river. So, and in particular with a 100-year storm, for example, we designed the drainage system for a 25-year storm. So theoretically, the 100-year storm elevation, if we had a 100-year storm, is never going to get into the basin, at least not immediately, because it can't get into the drainage system. So I guess my understanding of the design intent by using particular models is that you have a uniform way of looking at stuff and comparing things without having to worry about the exact reality. So, and again, no disrespect, Mark, I'm sure your information is correct. You know, was there a catch basin frozen or blocked with ice or something like that, or leaves? Again, I don't know the background on that. I think the commission has a regulation, and I think you folks need to go back and look at what was the design intent, and is this reasonable or not? On the, just going through the notes on several of the basins, again, these are small amounts, a couple of tenths of an inch or a tenth of an inch. I think the worst one was maybe 0.35 feet above the spillway. These aren't huge overtops of the spillway, but that being said, and some of them do maintain a 0.23 to 0.64 spill, you know, freeboard of the spillway. But if your design with intent was, as I think Mike or you had said, Cliff, to look for future storms, that you need to take a look at and see how reasonable that is if you're going to waive your regulation.
So just to back up to where the design came from, is the design intent for the last 30 years of my career has been the 2, the 10, the 25, and the 50-year storms are all contained within the basin. And then the 100-year storm event, which has now been increased with the Cornell University numbers, that 100-year storm event basically just creeps over the overflow spillway. So what that does is says the 100-year storm event, through these new increased numbers with Cornell, just barely within a couple of inches spills over the spillway. So what that does in good engineering terms, basically says, we're going to give back a little bit of water only during the 100-year storm to bleed off into the wetlands. So what these regulations do with the 25-year frozen storm event and an extra 100 extra foot of freeboard basically expands the basins to such a point that they're so big and so low, it never goes over and never goes overland flow and trickles into the streams and water bodies of the property. So it's really being retained on site and increasing hydraulic mounds underneath these basins, where really in existing conditions, they want to get that flow over to the streams.
I mean, with all due respect, Mark, you do have outflow pipes coming from each of these basins that in fact are less than the pre-development conditions, but there is water getting into those basins.
And a
Outside
much
of the basin,
lower,
into the-
yeah, right, and a much lower rate, Frank. And then what these two waiver requests do is actually reduce that rate even more. So I'm just saying, with these two waiver requests, you're not going to be replenishing those streams to the point that were pre-existing. So what we like to do is try to either match or just slightly decrease the peak flows and peak volumes. And I think that's the intent of the Wetlands Protection Act.
One of the reasons we have, the mounding occurring under the basins is because such a large volume of water is being infiltrated in a relatively small area as opposed to site-wide. And that's why in certain situations, we actually require mounding analysis to make sure that the mound doesn't intersect with the bottom of the basin. So, and we understand how that works. The question here is, does the commission feel that it's necessary to provide the extra layer of protection with a 1-foot freeboard over the 100-year storm event in anticipation of future events? Now, we don't have to make a decision on this one tonight, but I know that if we decide we want to not grant that waiver, the applicant needs to do some homework. The 25-year frozen ground conditions is a much easier one for me because I have personally seen basins in frozen ground conditions in a 10-year storm, basins that we permitted nearly over top in frozen ground conditions. I feel very strongly that, but we haven't gotten there yet. I need people to talk to me about what we want to do for this 100-year storm freeboard because I can't make the decision myself. I mean, we've heard the applicant's representative state his case. I don't want to keep delaying making a decision. We have the information we need. We have the applicant's representative state his case. We know the intent of our regulation. We've heard what our peer reviewer has said. I need someone to tell me what's your pleasure here.
Well, I think they both make good cases for their points. I'm just the engineering is a little fuzzy, especially where we don't know how that gravelly soil is actually going to perk, for lack of a better term, what the infiltration rate on that soil is. We know what the state is saying we can use, but I don't know what it will actually be.
Is there ledge?
No
Right,
ledge.
and Fafford's whole point. Not Fafford. Sorry. Varney's whole point of being out there was taking all the gravel, and I think they did a fairly good job of that.
What was left is still gravel. They just didn't take it down to the groundwater level.
Well, I know there's a lot of ledge in the abutting site.
Yes, that's why we like working on this site.
So you've encountered no ledge?
Not underneath these basins. No, we've done test pits underneath all the basins and come up with, and it's in the drainage report, gravelly material underneath. And again, it's probably in on other sites when you try to use in situ testing, it's probably in the range of between 8 and 10 inches per hour. But the state stormwater management regulations only allow a maximum of 2.4 inches per hour.
Sir, I got a question. Is the applicant saying that they can't meet this requirement and that's why they're asking for the waiver, or that to do so is going to cause the basins to be so large they impact the development of the project in some way? I'm not clear on why it is that they want the waiver for that, other than saying that they feel it's extreme. That's been made clear.
Absolutely. Great point, Mike. Great point. And we have the luxury on this property, as you know, to be giving back 45 acres of 45% of the property is open space. So we have more than enough land to make these basins work. It's not a matter of it won't work and the project goes away by any means. It's just a matter of these basins will get larger, they will be more costly, they will take down more trees, and they will, you know, they will be grossly oversized. So it's not a matter of will we lose units, you know, will this project go, you know, be shelved? Absolutely not. It's an 88 acre site with, you know, 40 acres being open space. We can very easily make these changes. We feel as if it's, you know, in the best interest of the act to try to match existing conditions, peak flows and peak volumes.
Are you saying we would get less open space to the town eventually if you have to make the basins larger?
You may slightly. It depends on where we incorporate it. So we have another, you know, 6% of open space to play with. So we could incorporate it into the back of house lots, but it may go into open space. But either way, the town owns these drainage basins. So just be it known, whether they're small, big, or you know, somewhere else, the town always owns the drainage basin. So what we've done is we've shown open space for 40 plus acres, but each drainage basin is on its own parcel that the town will maintain.
Right. Well, I tend to err on the side of the scientists or engineers, wetland scientists, engineers, hydraulic engineers that came up with the regulations, and the 100-year storm one is an example here because that's the one we're dealing with, know a heck of a lot more than I do. And yes, they're being overcautious, but like an insurance salesman, you're buying insurance from a water protection point of view, from a water flooding point of view, I think, in their calculations. So they're going to be super cautious and oversize things, and that you can't fix it after the fact. So if you don't make it big enough to hold the worst case scenario, 100-year in this case is the worst case scenario, I guess, which nowadays I thought there was some talk, perhaps not in the state regulations, but that the 100-year storm is becoming a lot less than 100-year. It's more like a 50-year storm now, given climate change and other things that we're seeing around. So my inclination is to protect the site more and err on the side of caution for this regulation that's already in place. It's not like a new regulation.
May I offer a suggestion?
Sure. Do so.
Maybe what we could do is ask Mark to create a very simple model on what the difference in size would be for a couple of these basins, to give the commission an idea of what we're talking about in variations in size. Is that possible, Mark?
It is, and I did kind of go through it roughly on one of our basins, and that's kind of where the text in the waiver request came from. It's basically about a 25 to 30% delta in size. So the footprint is going to get, you know, 25 to 30% larger, based going from waiver to waiver. So the 1 foot of freeboard will add 25%, and then the frozen ground from the 10 to 25 years adds another 25%.
So,
I have a question. Since the town was referred to in this, is Don DeMartinez has any comments as the person that would be responsible for maintaining these basins down the road? A larger basin, 50% larger, does that matter to you, Don?
I don't think Don's on here anymore.
Oh, I see him on there, just muted.
I think that's
Don
Selectman.
Martinez. Oh, wrong Don, sorry. I thought he was on the other page. I flipped back and forth, sorry. Well, that would be a question for the town, but I'm not sure if the maintenance part of it, since that was mentioned by the applicant, is an issue. But anyway, yeah.
Well, and the other part about that, Mike, is that if they are undersized and in the future, these are going to be the town's responsibility to deal with that issue if it does come up.
And now you have no idea what the town or any town would do if the basin's too small. We know what happens if some of them, like the one along Pulaski that doesn't work, designed by the state, doesn't work. But what happens if it's just not big enough for something, and then the town is stuck with dealing with that and all the residents in the area and impacts the wetlands, et cetera. So I don't know.
So
Maybe if I could, Cliff, maybe if I could just make a suggestion. We have the basins designed right at the Cornell 8.5 to 9 inches in a 24-hour cycle, just barely bleeding over the riprap spillway. Maybe I can add another 2 inches to it and still show you that it won't overtop the berm. It maybe go up another 2 or 3 inches, but it will definitely be able to handle it and still sort of show you that the pre and post volumes and peak flows are attenuated.
I have a couple of issues that I want some guidance I want to give you before we continue this, because we've got other hearings stacked up. But you mentioned that it would be an increase in size for the freeboard for the 100-year storm, and it would be another increase in size for considering frozen ground conditions. So if we were to just say design for the frozen ground conditions, that would provide extra storage capacity for the 100-year storm, would it not?
Absolutely, I absolutely would.
So, Frank, does that seem like a reasonable thing? In other words,
yeah, when I looked at the 25-year design storms for the basins, in one place, the 25-year storm was 1 inch over the spillway. But that was without frozen ground. That's just, so I certainly, and I don't have the top of my head what the volumes are, but I would, for frozen ground, I'd presume everything that falls on the ground runs off. And you could sort of look at that volume and see where that would be within a basin. And on a couple of the basins, you've got, again, 1.2 to 3.1 feet of storage using a 25-year design storm that does not have frozen ground. So I think that would give you a relatively large buffer that maybe you get 8/10 or 7/10 of or 2/10 of a foot or whatever it's going to be for the 100-year storm.
Right.
But you've now reduced that so that those couple of tenths that we have right now for the 100-year storm that goes over the top of the spillway, that's not going to happen.
Right. Mark, does that seem reasonable to you?
Again, I
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you right, and you're thinking maybe if we design the basins to the 25-year frozen ground condition, but not the 1 foot of freeboard above the 100-year condition, that may give you belts, but not belts and suspenders and neckties and all sorts of other stuff.
That's what I'm thinking is a reasonable solution here.
Yeah,
So-
we made one.
Just so you know, we did meet the 10-year storm frozen condition. We just didn't go to the 25. So that was going to be the next waiver request. So I think that would be, a compromise to give one of the two waivers. And if you were to pick one or the other, it's probably, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
I know we really have to hustle.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
This Dan Spencer from the Select Board. Just going through this, it looks like we're what Mark is giving us is a 99% guarantee of compliance, and what the commission is looking for is 100% guarantee of compliance.
Dan, we got a real problem.
That could ever happen.
We can't hear
I
you.
think, looking back through the past few. Oh, I'm sorry. How about now? No?
Like, we're good.
Of course not. All right, never mind. I'll defer. Go ahead.
Oh my. All right. Mark, I'm going to ask you to do that before we open up our next hearing, though. There's another item I want to talk to you about really quickly to give you a heads up. This is information we'll be requesting. based on the evaluation of the riparian zone, what we're going to do, we're going to ask you to lay out in the field the riparian zones. Then we're going to conduct a site inspection. That way we can evaluate the existing conditions and determine what areas will be granted redevelopment status, and if there are any areas that will not be granted redevelopment status, because we got to get that number locked in too.
Yeah, I think that's an extensive discussion. I don't know if we can just kind of breeze by that. Do we have time to get into that based on the letter that we?
This is a request we're going to make of you to do. We're going to ask you to go out there and lay that out so we can evaluate it in the field. It has nothing to do with previous development or previous degradation. What we're going to look at is current in the field conditions and what values those conditions bring to the riparian zone, and whether or not redevelopment will enhance or reduce those values. We need to see it in the field. Orthophotography is not going to do it. Obviously, we can't do it right now, of course. But.
No, I mean, we made that based on the recommendation from BSC Group. We actually went out and did those evaluations, and the photographs are part of that response letter that we provided to you. It's very easy if you go out in the field tomorrow. The flags are still there, and with a 200-foot tape, you can very easily do it on your own. I don't see the benefit of physically staking it out in the field. I think it's very easy to go do that evaluation without it.
Okay, if the flags are there, fine. When the snow cover is gone, we'll schedule a site to go out. We're going to look at soils. We're going to look at vegetation, trees, shrubs, and see what kind of conditions exist. We have not really paid attention to those field conditions because the only field work we did essentially was verification of the resource area line and identification of the potential vernal pools. So,
yeah. So what we did as part of the response to the comments that BSC put forth was to go evaluate those areas and compare and contrast those to all of the other previously disturbed areas on site. And as Varney Brothers Sand and Gravel was sort of exiting the property, they left their spoil piles of gravel and cobbles and stone, and it has slowly grown back since the 60s and 70s. So we don't disagree that that some trees have taken, and through the pictures that we showed, that some of the yellow pine trees that are stressed are growing directly on top of rock. We just feel as if the letter of the act basically says that areas that were degraded prior to 1996 per definition 310 CMAR 1058 section 5. We've shown in our response letter that in 1971, at least, from historical photographs, that it was completely devoid and denude of everything and was basically moonscape.
And it was 50 years ago. So these are current conditions. And also remember very, very carefully that it says the condition may grant a redevelopment status. And in order for us to grant redevelopment status, we are going to go out in the field and make an on-site evaluation. Besides, we've already required you guys to do a habitat evaluation in the riparian zone and the buffer zones to vernal pools. So that'll help give us some baseline information too.
Yeah, so we have Jeff DiRigio to that point too. He has been contracted to do those evaluations. Obviously, the time of the year has not been conducive to his studies, but we do have him here to let you know that he is on board and will be supplying the commission those habitat evaluations. Okay. And like I say, you don't need us to help you pull a 200-foot tape. It's very obvious to see where those mountains of stone are. There's a ton of trails back there that are used by bike riders. And it's very easy just to scrape down and see that there's a leaf litter layer, and then it's bony rock and gravel.
But we would like either you or your representative to be present so that when we perform these evaluations, we can determine if there are areas that are not going to qualify for redevelopment, they're removed from, or they're added to the alteration of the riparian zone.
If I can just point out, Cliff, you know, the photographs that you provided in that exhibit dated 1/20/21 were actually
Okay, I
really
have
great.
not reviewed those. We got those very late and we had no opportunity to respond to review.
Okay, that's fine. We can,
No, go ahead. No,
I was just going to say that it actually shows beautifully, Mark, the recovery of the riverfront area over time from 1970s to 1995. And, you know, clearly there'd be continued recovery between 95 and 2020. So, you know, if you did your photo interpretation based on using the proxy of absence of vegetation to indicate the absence of soil, which I actually agree with. I think that's fine approach. And so as of today, when you've put in your application for a permit, that would be the question of whether or not there is area that is subject to redevelopment today. And you've clearly demonstrated that there is recovery over 25-year periods. So that's, I think what Cliff is saying is that we need to go out and look at what today qualifies as having no topsoil. And so that's that's the intention.
Sure, and just to let you know where we came from, and it's in the alternatives analysis that was provided last Friday. You know, what we basically looked at was back in 1971, when the area was degraded and had absence of topsoil, there was over 7 acres that was denuded on the property. And in the 50 years since, just a skim, and you'll find it when you go out to the site, there's just a skim layer of leaf litter or pine that's at the top, and then you'll see, you know, bony gravel underneath and just piles and piles of rock. So I think we're gonna, what we basically did, Matt, is we basically took the letter of the law that said prior to 1996, if it was devoid or absent of topsoil, it would qualify as redevelopment.
No, I'm afraid the way I read that is that the 1996 alteration is a baseline qualification. It's a if you look at your site today and say, you know, what qualifies for what has no topsoil, what portion of my site has no topsoil, it must also have had no topsoil in 96 in order to qualify.
Right.
So
I agree, and what the language says is a previously developed riverfront area contains areas degraded prior to August 7th, 1996 by absence of topsoil. So I think by the definition, we meet that, showing the 1971 overlay. But what we did, just to let you know, and you know, what we did is we took a conservative approach. We didn't use the 1971 overlay and say the moonscape in 1971 showed 7 acres of obliterated land. We basically went to 1995's ortho overlay and said there's only about 2 acres back in 1995. So we actually discounted and were very conservative in our riverfront analysis. And not only that, Matt, the game and
you've shown recovery of the riverfront.
No. We admitted that we gave up that 5.5 acres. We're not proving recovery, because when you go out, you'll see this is just a skim layer of topsoil.
Yeah,
so
I've seen it.
What I'm saying is the point is we were very conservative in our approach to this riverfront area, and to the point that, and when Jeff DiRigio was doing the ANRAD, we also we basically gave into the fact that although stream stats didn't show that this unnamed stream was perennial, we conceded and said we will work within the regulations of the riverfront area, and we will design our project around it. So we just want to make that known to the commission that although stream stats does not support this as a perennial stream, that we've treated as a perennial stream of such, and now we're also adding a layer of conservancy to say, you know, we're not going back to 1971. We're going to use 1995 orthos. So we feel as if we've created a lot of
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think Dennis Frayne had a comment.
Good evening. Sorry, my mug isn't up there. Dan asked me to relay a comment that he had made. It's in the chat room, but essentially what he was saying is it looks like you're getting 99% assurance of compliance, and what the commission is looking for is 100%. He went on to say he thinks it's unreasonable expectation and causes undue delay. And I think it ties in with, and we're not engineers, and it's a project that I think a lot of us have been in tune and paying attention to for a long time. The selectmen actually signed a development agreement. Somebody's saying goodnight there. The selectmen actually entered into a development agreement with the developer some time ago. They're doing a lot for us. They're doing the Mill Street drainage. They're doing the drainage behind some that's coming off of 126 for us. They're obviously making a very large contribution as part of the project entered into in the development agreement that's going to be going to the schools. So I understand, again, we're not engineers, but I think as much as anything, Cliff, I think we're here to essentially support the project, and we think it's an important project and one that's going to work well for the town.
Okay, and I think that what Dan Spencer was talking about were the waivers related to stormwater management issues. And I think we've come up with a potential viable solution to that. But what I need to do now, we need to move on. This is a project that it's very complicated, Dennis. We have a project right now that has been very difficult, and it has been difficult for years. We want to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes with this project that we made with a previous project that it shall go unnamed. But there are many similarities between this project and that project, and we're putting everything we learned, bringing it all to bear to make sure that the project will be the best possible project for the town of Bellingham environmentally. And I'm going to have to move on to the next hearing because we're almost a half hour late. But we're having this discussion about the riparian zone. 1058 section 5 is very clear. The commission has the authority to either grant or not grant degradation, and we need to go out. And I'm making this very clear. We're going to go out. We're going to look at it. We're going to evaluate it. If the information that Mark has submitted is correct, and that there are actually 2 acres of degraded riverfront area, and that's what he's claiming is degraded, then that's fine. But we never do things with pictures or maps. This commission is known for going out in the field, boots on the ground. We do physical evaluations, and we'll do that here. So I think we all have ideas about where we need to work. Mark's going to provide us some additional information. And do you think you'd be ready to follow up the access roadway one with this one, Mark? In other words, if we...
I'd like to run them simultaneously because we're not going to issue 2 sets of plans. It's going to be, one set of, one master set, but broken up into 2 NOIs.
Right.
So yeah, whenever we continue this hearing too, I think would best be continued to the municipal improvements.
Okay. So then what we'll do is I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing to the evening of February 10th at 8 o'clock, which is immediately following the Common Street town portion.
If I could just add one thing, Cliff, between now and then, I just want to make it clear. On page 10 of our response letter, at the outset, you introduced the project based on the initial impacts. We have actually drastically reduced all of those environmental impacts. I just want the commission to know that between June of last year and today, there's a significant amount of change. So just please look at table 2, page 10, and see all of the progress we've made between now and then, because what you listed earlier as a part of the buffer zone, the BVW, the riverfront area, all those areas have come down based on the revised 2 sets of plans we've given you.
That was from your project description in the filing.
Correct. So I just want to make it clear that that's incorrect. It's a lot less.
Well, that's the advertising. That's how we have to open the hearing, by reading the advertisement.
It's just changed, so it's up to you.
If we were to permit the impacts that were always advertised, we would not be doing our job. Okay, so I'm waiting for a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by unanimous vote. So we'll be seeing Allen Engineering on February 10th.
Do you need to set a date for that site walk so we can let the owners know for access and opening gates and whatnot?
We'll just follow the ATVs. No, Mark, I don't know. We don't know what it is.
It's never locked.
Because we've got snow on the ground right now, make it difficult to determine soils, make it difficult to do habitat evaluations, but it'll be at the top of the list when conditions allow. Okay. All right. So apologies. Who's looking on this?
This is going to be Colony or Karen should be on.
Karen Skinner?
But Paul
Is Paul DeSimone here?
I don't see either of them unless Paul's one of these phone numbers.
Karen, are you on?
I don't believe so, guys.
Oh, we're late. Maybe they, all right, well, the Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Chapter 131, Section 40, the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, on the notice of intent for the repair of an existing failing septic system with a Title V system located within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at Assessor's Map 4, Parcel 26, 11 Stone Street, Bellingham. Karen Skinner, Catroni, Gilbert Drive, Stoughton, has submitted the filing on behalf of Edward and Wendy Jones, South Street, Franklin. The hearing will be held online via Zoom on Wednesday, January 27th at 9:15. Apologies, we're running late. I don't see anyone here representing the applicant. And as this is a simple septic repair, and we really don't like to hold up. Is Bruce Wilson on? Okay. Does one of the commission have access to the Dropbox that Amy created?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we go to the
11 Stone Street.
11 Stone Street file? We'll open up the plans so everybody can see them.
I have it.
How we doing?
I have it up.
Okay. Jim, would you let Brian share his screen so we can take a look at this plan?
Wrong one. Hold on one second.
It's okay.
Here we go. Yeah, I'm not having much luck here.
Anybody
Don't
else?
worry, Brian, we got all night.
No, we don't.
There we go. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Sorry about
close that blue bar though, and the sidebar, you'll make it bigger.
I put a full screen.
You can close that sidebar on the upper.
Hey, there we go.
That's good.
Okay. So does everybody know where we're talking here? This is Stone Street?
Yeah, I had a question. When we're looking at the plot, when I was looking at the other plan that was included, the streets and the houses, there's wetlands between that, the houses there and the houses on Beach Street?
Do you remember when the town improved the drainage?
Oh, yeah, I remember all that. I just didn't realize there's wetlands between the two rows of houses on those two streets, because they're not far apart.
Yeah, what it is it's my guess is that, 150 years ago, it was an open field with a stream running down through the field. They put in two roads, built houses on either side of the stream, and there's a section that 50, 60, 70 years ago was actually piped behind a couple of those houses. But when the town did the drainage improvements on Beach Street, we verified the wetland delineation on the other side of this particular wetland. And so that's the location. I think we had a septic repair.
Somewhere along this area, yeah.
It was an abutting house.
Yeah.
That was, Leonardo Bosch's daughter?
Yeah, no, that wasn't a septic.
I could have sworn we've had a couple of septic repairs.
We have in Beach Street and Stone Street.
That is correct.
Because of that brook.
I don't think the systems do very well down there.
High groundwater.
And the brook had that beaver dam problem, didn't it? The town had to deal with?
Further down. That
under the
was,
culvert under 126, yeah.
Yes. Well, this little stream is not associated with that brook. It's a tributary, but it's not that brook.
Okay.
Okay, but it is a tributary. So anyway, what we have, and if Brian would enlarge that just a tad.
Can't figure it out. I don't know if it'll go any.
That's okay. We can do it. The administrator and I inspected the site, and we verified the wetland line, and we found the wetland line to be accurate. In fact, there's actually a little stream channel that runs in the back, and there's probably about 15 feet of BVW associated with that stream channel. So that was accurate. The location for the septic system, they've got they're proposing using the existing tank and then putting in a pump chamber and then pumping it.
No, we're not. Cliff, can you hear me?
Oh, it's okay. It's Paulie Simone.
Good, let him do it.
Yeah, I've been yelling. No one heard me.
Did you have your?
It's a new 1,500 gallon tank.
Oh, okay.
Should I explain it all?
Yes, would you please explain it, Paul? Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So you've already walked the wetland line. When you guys are out there, did you see the stakes for the septic systems? Because we did stake it out on the ground.
I don't recall seeing. I
Okay.
saw yeah. Go ahead.
You saw the test hole. You saw the test hole area, correct?
That's it. Yes.
Okay, so we're trying to keep the system as far away from the wetlands as we could. We have a hill there. You can notice that the top of the hill is like 104 and it steps down. So we did the test hole at the bottom of that hill.
Yeah.
And so that means we have to grade. We're actually just pushing the hill out and grading over it. If we had went into the front yard, we'd have a massive mound there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using the pipe comes out in the same spot. The old tank is roughly in that same area, but we're putting in a new 1,500 gallon tank with a pump chamber and then pumping it up to the system. It's a large system. We couldn't do a perk test. We had to send the soils out because the water was pouring into the perk hole.
That's what we saw. That's exactly what we saw, Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really high water table. We tried a hole to the right of the house up in that area. It seemed to be nice gravel, but that water table was down 2 feet also, and it's flat right there. So again, we'd have a massive mound.
Yeah.
So this gets rid of the mound. It tucks into that hill pretty decently.
Mhm.
And you can see the wood line on the plan. You guys looking at the plan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the shed's kind of into the woods a little bit, and the line comes to the left off the shed and curls around. So it's in a wooded area, but it's kind of all small, scrappy stuff.
Yeah.
Not a lot of big trees. But it's basically the only place we could really put it without making a mess.
Yeah, there's some aspen, honeysuckle. One thing we did notice around the shed area, there's some debris, like we usually.
Yeah, the new owner, I told the new owner about that. He's going to clean it up. It's a brand new owner.
Okay.
And they're working on the inside of the house, and they're going to redo the outside. And I told him about the stuff behind the shed there, and he said he'd get rid of it.
Okay, good, because it'll be in the order. We always, when we do septic repairs, we look for areas that impact resource areas, and there's some trash there.
I assume by
There is. We saw it.
means properly dispose and not just throw it further back until it sinks into the wetlands.
Well, we'll be doing a sediment and erosion control inspection. We'll make sure it's gone.
So Paul,
Yep, it'll be.
Paul, where is the existing system?
Okay, do you see where the new pump chamber is?
Yes.
Just to the left of that we hit it because we tried a test hole right to the left of that pump chamber. Okay. And we went down about 12, 14 inches and hit the old system. It was just gushing out of the ground.
Oh.
So it's directly behind the house.
Okay, yep.
Okay. So has the house been vacant for a while?
I'm going to want to guess maybe about 5 or 6 months, maybe.
Okay. So the system was in groundwater.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So
and
this
the
is an
pipe
improvement.
that comes out, the pipe that comes out is under the floor, so it's and that the water's down right there. If you dig a hole right there, you're going to hit water. So we actually designed we have a pump. It's called an anti-flotation shelf tank. What it is, it's a new kind of a tank that has like flanges on the outside. Because we couldn't get a normal 1,500 gallon tank to calculate out for the buoyancy test. So these flanges with the material put on top of it will hold it in the ground in case they pump it during the wet season. If they were to pump it out during the wet season, it would just pop out of the ground. Wow. So this should do it. It's a new design.
I've never seen it. Cliff, maybe you have, and the calculations on the left there. I've never seen the uplift force more than the tank without putting the dirt on top of it. So basically it's sitting in 4 feet of water, it looks like, the bottom of the tank. Is that right, Paul?
Yes.
So
it is. It's almost, it's up to the invert.
So just a quick question. Does that calculation, if I'm looking at the H20 monolithic cutaway there, the covers brought up to finished grade, are those access cleanouts or something? It's showing the pump chamber cutaway. I don't see one for the septic tank.
The pump chamber detail on the left-hand side of the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that has 2 access ports on top.
So it talks about needing to have a certain amount of weight to hold this down. And without that weight from the calculations, the uplift and so forth from all the water it's sitting in, it doesn't look like it would work. Is that calculation account for the fact that some of those areas aren't going to be solid dirt? I mean, it just says weight of dirt. It doesn't say, taking into account the manholes or the cleanouts and other things that are not dirt sitting on top of this, holding it down. Because it's really close.
On the pump chamber, the tank itself was enough in weight. We didn't have to worry about dirt. Okay. On the tank, we didn't meet it with the tank. So that's why we got this flange tank. So the dirt, this is on the sides of the tank. In other words, those flanges will stick out a couple of feet, and the dirt on top of those flanges will hold the tank in the ground during if they would pump it during the wet season. Because if the tank's full of water, it won't come out of the ground because you have the weight of the water in the tank. But if you were to pump it dry during, you know, high water table, then that thing would just jump right out of the ground.
So does this have to be installed during the driest part of the year possible to get it to go down into the ground before you, otherwise you...
No, they can pump it out while they're doing it.
And they're gonna, and is that accounted for in the plan to have that water be bagged and whatever treated as you're pumping it out of the ground so we don't get silt all over the backyard into the wetlands?
Well, the ideal situation is to put this in July or August, but if this erosion control is there and they're pumping it out, you're talking like maybe a half a day to pump it out and put the tank in the ground real quick, you know.
I'm just
put
asking.
the stone down. They can have a tank put in a couple of hours.
We might want something with a filter bag, though.
Yeah, I would think
Just to
if
be
the
on the
owner wants
safe
to go
side.
in soon, I mean, they're building out the house, they're not gonna wanna wait till May or June to get their septic put in because the existing one sounds like it's failed pretty much. Then we would probably wanna make sure the conditions, just the order of conditions, whatever, reflects all the protection we can because it's so close to the wetlands and it does slope down in that direction, it looks like the plans.
Yeah, if they pump it out, they can pump it out into the front yard.
That's all
But
pill.
it wouldn't be like a week of pumping out a hole. It would be, you know, within a few hours.
Well, if they can pump it into the, now remember, it's going to be very close to where that old septic system was. It's probably a cesspool. So if there was sufficient.
No, we hit stone. We hit all kinds of stone there. It was some type of a bed with stone in it.
Okay.
The old tank's going to be destroyed and taken out.
Okay, but once you start pumping the groundwater to put in the new tank, you could be pumping water that's contaminated from the old system.
Well, no, the stone and the old system is over behind the house. The old tank is a little further away than this tank, and it's just going to be collapsed and filled in with sand. But I don't think it's going to take that long to pump it out. And
so you don't think when you're pumping, you don't think when you're pumping out where the new 1,500 gallon tank is, you don't think you're going to be pumping groundwater? Of course you are. But you don't think that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But you don't think the
you're definitely going to be pumping the groundwater. Absolutely, you got to stay ahead of it.
Right. Okay. And so my point is, you know, the old system was in groundwater, so the old system could be contaminated. You could be pumping contaminated groundwater, right?
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we just can't pump that down the road.
Or into the front yard, which is just barely at the 100-foot buffer mark. I mean, pumping it that way, it's going to roll or want to flow back down towards the back of the house and the front of the house. I mean, they got to do something with that. I don't know. Contain it, treat it, and bag it, whatever. Dewatering bags. I don't know.
Well, we can wait. We can wait until the. I mean, it's going to be a while before they're done with that house. I can tell you that.
Okay, and it's going to be.
If you want me to talk to the owner about waiting until like July, not even June, but like say July and August, that's when the water table is going to be the lowest.
Yep. And then pump it up to the front of the house. That's a 6 foot. That's a 6 foot rise. You're gonna have to have a decent pump to do that.
Yeah, they can. That's not a problem.
Okay.
But Cliff, just to be clear, you'd want it to flow across the front yard outside of the 100-foot buffer. We're not recommending that they pump it out within the 100-foot buffer, right?
No, it's got to be to the front of the house.
No. Okay, well,
just right in front of the house
is just barely the 100-foot buffer. I'm just saying, depending on where they drop that hose, it's immediately going to start flowing back down inside the 100-foot buffer. Isn't there best practice policy? I mean, isn't there a procedure for doing this kind of thing? We're not the first ones to come across this situation, right?
If they pump it out into the front of the house and it trickles over to the left-hand side of the house where the system's going, that's outside the 100-foot buffer, and they're going to put the tank in first. So that area over there isn't going to be disturbed yet. So whatever's over there for vegetation and brush and whatnot, it can be pumped over into that area where the system's going to go. Then that whole area is going to be dug out anyways. Because the tank will be the first thing to put in.
Sounds reasonable.
In the pump chamber.
Okay.
So if you want to put in the order of conditions that if they have to pump, they can pump it over to where over into the wooded area outside the 100-foot buffer on the left-hand side of the house.
Well, when we went out to inspect, the groundwater was there in the hole, in your test holes.
Yeah, it's high. It's
Yeah.
high. And if it was in the test hole, it's probably trapped because the material, not only is it high groundwater, but the material wasn't that great either. I mean, we've done a couple down on Stone Street where it was all sand, but this was not sand.
No, that's not what we saw. Okay. All right, so I guess
So with the slow perk rate and the high water table, you get a pretty good sized system going in there.
All right, well, so we're gonna clean up the trash. We're going to pump the groundwater for the installation of the tank to the left of the house, outside the buffer zone. And guess that's about it. The Board of Health has approved this plan.
Yeah, I haven't talked to anybody in the Board of Health yet.
Ian?
I'm pretty sure Bruce said that it was approved, but you would know better than
Okay, yeah, I haven't heard. I haven't heard.
Okay. So the last thing is to condition it so that it takes place during period of low groundwater, July, August.
Alrighty.
Okay.
And I just put on that, I just put erosion control, so whatever you want to put in the order for mulch tube or whatever.
No, I think we'll do something a little beefier than that.
Yeah.
Because you're
Silt
building
fence
that grade
and
up.
mulch tube. Or-
I think we'll go with straw bales, staked straw bales. Oh, I see.
Okay.
You mean for down below?
Well,
You know,
the erosion control I show on the plan going around, I don't know what you wanted to use there. I just called it erosion control.
Yeah.
There's a use of fence.
All right. Entrench. Ian suggests entrenched silt fence. So
Silt fence.
that's what we'll
Yep.
say.
Yep.
Yep.
Silt fence with a mulch tube or just a silt fence?
Just the entrenched silk fence is
Entrenched
fine.
silt fence. Install it
Okay.
correctly, and it'll be fine.
All right.
All right.
Alrighty.
I think that's it.
All right. If you want to send them to me or call me, we'll grab and record them.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, by unanimous vote. Okay,
All right. Thanks, guys.
all right.
Thank you.
So we got the last one. We're going to open up the continuation for,
It's right down here.
oh, thank you. Lot 81.
Maybe John's run away already. Oh, no,
No,
he's
he's
still here.
here.
Darn.
Yeah, he's waiting.
Not that we're trying to get rid of you,
Frank is hanging
John.
in there too. What a
I
trooper.
mean, if you really want to get rid of me, we can work out an approval here, and this will be one less project on your guys' desk at that point, and you won't have to deal with me at least for a few months, hopefully on a different project or anything else in that case.
No, we don't want to get rid of you that easily.
He's got a point, though.
No, well, I was thinking about burying him in the back.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. I mean, I don't think we've gone that far now.
That's one way to make sure the wall gets built right. Put them inside it, inside of it. That's an Edgar Allan Poe story. The Cask of Amontillado.
So I think it's abundantly clear that we still have concerns relative to construction methodology and viability of the lot. I think we made some progress. I think that Frank's suggestion about putting the T's in the, let's see, it doesn't say that that's perforated in your detail.
As far as the detail goes, again, it's a very typical detail. That is something that's pulled off of Versalog's website, if I'm not mistaken. They will be producing a stamped engineered plan that would include details more tailored to the design itself. I know that as far as Frank's suggestion on the T goes, that is something that is typical installed when it does come to those sort of drains on those types of walls. I have seen them in many other applications around the state where they are used as such. And if it is something that we do have to specify to Versalog to ensure that it is done so, we can definitely make sure that we do relay that information to them.
Right, so we just completed we're in the process, we closed the hearing, and we have a prepared order of conditions for Pelletier Drive, which is a similar situation. And we got the engineer to give us the plans in advance so we could reference them in the order. That would give us a little higher degree of comfort, I think. Now, we've asked for the profile, front to back of the lot, north to south, so we can get a handle on all of the elevations, including the slab elevation, the top of concrete, the wall, the footing, the whole 9 yards. The side view might help illustrate what we're doing here. If we could get, details a little more specific, do you think that's possible?
As far as some sort of detail goes, I mean, I can definitely provide you with an elevation view that would cut north to south through, essentially, I can do it along the retaining wall side, or at least kind of cut it through the middle of the lot and show you where the retaining wall would look on that. I mean, essentially, you would just be looking at, the height of the wall, and you would see an existing grade with possibly like a dash line behind it. But the top of the wall would be our proposed grades for it. I'm honestly not 100% sure how that would necessarily help. But if that is something that you guys would like to see in order to move this project along, I can definitely put something together. As far as any sort of stamped engineer plans go, unfortunately, the client's not going to be putting anything together just yet. If ultimately this lot is determined by you to be, undevelopable, we wouldn't want to try to put any sort of additional costs into the engineering of that wall. If it is something that you would like to see those plans as a part of some sort of condition, I can definitely pass that along. In terms of when we will be able to get those plans, I'm honestly not sure of what the time frame of Versalog would be for it. But obviously anything that I can do on my end to help push this along, I'll try to put anything together for you.
Mr. Chair, I keep hearing a lot of, and John, it's not your fault, I'll shoot the messenger, but you're a lot of, well, this should be how things go. I mean, Cliff has asked for who the engineer of record will be, and it's like whoever Versalog or their sub suggests, and we'd like to know exactly who it is. If we want to see the drainage pipe shown with the perforations in instead of the standard template that, or not template, but the standard type of illustration that you showed, I just feel like it's almost like we want to tell the applicant, the developer here, that if they want this project on this lot to be going forward from the commission's point of view, at least from my point of view on the commission, I want to see what they're actually going to do, not typical, this is how it should be, this is how it ought to be, this is how it might be, and develop the thing. If they don't want to invest in an engineer to show the plans of how it's going to be built, and for the contractor to specify how they're going to stay on that side of the wall and not ever go over the wall because the property, the no disturb is just on the other side of that wall, then that's on them. I don't feel obligated to push the project along with any haste at all if they're not going to respond to give us the information we want to feel comfortable, especially on this site with this developer. Not shooting the messenger, John.
No, understandable there. Like I said, I can definitely talk to the team again. Mention again that you guys would be looking to get those stamped engineer drawings from Versalog on the wall. Essentially, those drawings, I know from the last meeting we were at where they had the emergency wall repair, they would be, for the most part, the same exact thing. You know, it would have your profile that you're looking for, any sort of potential cross-section, any of the details, you know, block heights, geogrid lengths. You know, I've had the discussions with Versalock on it, but nothing's been finalized. You know, that's based off of whatever the structural engineer would ultimately determine for it. I know, like, in terms of the geogrid lengths and such things, they might be able to vary a block size in order to help shorten those up or anything. But again, I don't have any sort of expertise in that area, so I can't necessarily speak on that too much. But I can, like I mentioned, pass along that essentially to gain the approval of the commission, we would need to have those engineer drawings, and that I can just have that be continued until we would get them, or anything along those lines. Again, if it is something that we can have like a condition for that, and then, you know, we could just supply those to you as soon as they're available, you know, whichever is easiest for you guys, obviously, to help keep this moving forward. I don't want to create more work for you or anything along those lines as well.
No, we're being thorough. We're being thorough. We're concerned about this. Frank, do you have any other observations?
And maybe just a question or request. So I wonder if, John, you could put together a cross-section that sort of shows, and I'm not sure where east and west is, but across the lot from where the conservation property is, through the wall, through where the foundation is going to be, and then across the lot, just so that we have a picture that shows how those things relate versus, and I'm looking at it on a Zoom screen, so I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage, but that might be helpful in trying to visualize what the separations are and how close things are.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, I can definitely produce some sort of cross-section for you guys there. Ultimately, though, I don't have the specific details for the wall or the geogrid. That's something that, you know, the calculations that they would have to put in to make those determinations, they haven't been worked out just yet. So the cross-section that I could provide you in that case, you know, would be just based off of whatever information I can find off of typical details, essentially, in that case. I mean, I don't have any sort of expertise on designing or you know, creating those types of walls. I'm not trying to say that I do in any way, shape, or form at any point either. But I mean, I can at least provide something that, you know, can somewhat resemble what you guys might be trying to achieve out there.
I mean, you've got a site plan that shows the locations of things. You have a standard detail, and you can note just standard detail from Versalock, but you also have the elevations. You have the elevation at the bottom of the wall, whatever the cross-section is cut, the top of the wall. I noticed, if I remember right, the slab of the basement is at elevation 192, and I'm not sure, and, you know, 10 feet away, the low part of the wall is at elevation 190, and then it goes uphill or something. It would be nice to know what that, at the middle of the foundation or something, what that wall height is, so that you don't have, if the wall's at 190, all along there, you don't have a building that's foundation is 2 feet above the top of the wall, for example.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, for as far as the grading would go, they would be stepping down the foundation, you know, at a foot exposure, whatever would be typical there. The wall would essentially follow the same thing. So whenever it reaches, you know, a foot lower than what it is, they'll drop it down a block, and they'll just keep working it as such. But yeah, like I said, if that's a north to south profile that you would like to see for it, I can try to generate one as best as I can. If it's an east to west one that cutting through the lot to show the 10-foot separation, you know, I can do so for that. Again, it would all be typical in that case, but I can have it noted on the plan and show it as such. And then if it is something that you still would need to see the stamped Versalock drawings, I can put in that request to the applicant and see what they can produce on their end for it.
Okay. Well, that's a little better.
Mr. Chairman, there was just one comment that that I think it was Alex made, that there would be, he said there would be minimal disturbance in the open space.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Minimal is more than none. And I think we should be very clear that our goal on the disturbance in the open space is 0.
I know from speaking with Versalock that everything would be done from the backside of the wall. I'm not sure if Alex meant as far as any sort of disturbance, that little bit of space in between where the silt fence would be and the face of the wall. just for that minimal grading that would occur and any sort of stabilization that occurs there. But in terms of anything that we're designing and what's being proposed and built, the intent would be everything inside the property, nothing would spill out.
Well, that would need to be more than the intent. That would need to be the actual what happened.
That would be the practice.
And that's understood for it too. I mean, obviously I can't, predict the future or anything. So I don't want to say 100% guarantee that would not happen. And then a freak accident or something happens where it does, but God forbid, knock on wood sort of thing. But
well, we've had enough fun with this lot. We'd hate to have an enforcement order on top of it.
Right. So again, this is a very, very, very difficult lot.
A lot of problems with it, that's for sure.
Well, I think we all have problems with it. We're trying to provide the applicant every opportunity to put our minds at rest that this can be done safely. And I'm getting a feeling that not everybody's feeling warm and fuzzy about this one. So I'm just going to ask a simple question here. Do you think that this additional information will assist in making a decision, or do you think that you've already made a decision? Because if the feeling consensus is that this is not a viable lot, then I need you guys to tell me now so that we can, instruct the applicant not to waste any more time or effort, unless of course they want to take it to court to appeal, which would be a tough row to hoe because of the difficulties of the lot. So
I would like to speak.
Please.
I would like to ask the commission members to let the applicant's representative provide the information, give him every opportunity to present all the information he has. And in the meantime, you can seriously think about where you want to go with your decision on permitting or denying this lot. But I think it's really important at this point in time, it's my opinion, that we gather a little bit more information.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly.
I second that. I would just emphasize to the applicant's representative here to be as specific as possible, and what you suggested, you might go back to the applicant and ask for, i.e. engineered stamp plans. That's the kind of level that I would need for confidence that this project can be done properly and stay on site within the boundaries that it's required to be. And so the more specific you come back, the better. The more standard forms that aren't specific, less helpful.
So just to clarify that, if, say, for instance, we are able to acquire the stamped engineered drawings for the wall, would you still need me to produce any sort of cross sections in that case, or that would be the information that would help alleviate any of your concerns there?
Well, the cross sections are going to be, I think, required so the commission can understand the physics of what's going on here.
And I would also say that, and to emphasize the vice chair's comments about the contractor's comments, Alex's comments, I'm not 100% sure that they can do it without going onto the open space if there's only a foot or so. I think there was only a foot between the silt fence and the edge of the property, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So I would want to hear a methodology specific to the site, specific to the project, by the person that's actually going to do the work and or supervise the work, this engineer that may or may not be on site. I heard that he will certainly stamp the plans, but that didn't say he will be supervising on site, as Cliff asked for the supervisor. I would want to see the contractor that's going to do this lay out step by step how he is going to stay on that side, or she is going to stay on that side of the property line and build this wall and not impact in leveling the ground or anything else beyond the area that they're supposed to as part of the presentation. That's what I would need to hear too, in addition to everything else that's been suggested to be provided. because I know we don't usually get into how things are done on projects, more just like the plans and so forth. But in this case, I don't think you can separate the how it's going to be done when you're this close to the property line and the no disturb zone from the overall approval process. To me, that's my opinion.
Okay. Well, John, you've got some substantial marching orders.
All right, well, thank you very much. I do appreciate you guys being able to help clarify a couple things for me this evening. And then I will pass along this information, and hopefully when we reconvene next, we'll have everything we'll need to get this one wrapped up for you guys.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to entertain a motion to continue the hearing for Lot 81 to the evening of February 24th at 7 o'clock.
So moved.
And you said that was February 24th?
24th at 7 o'clock. I have a motion and a second. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 We're getting tired.
Yes.
We're losing our effectiveness.
Aye, Captain.
Okay, that's better. All right. It's a unanimous vote. So I haven't done the minutes yet. Amy's given them to me. I haven't completed them. We have a passel of things to sign.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank
Okay,
you.
take care, Jeff.
I'm also going to sign off at this point, folks. Have a good rest of your evening. Get home soon.
Or you out there.
Frank.
Thank you so much. Appreciate
Very
it.
welcome.
Jim, we're only going to keep you for another minute. Sorry.
Can we meet Saturday?
Where am I
morning?
going? It's all
Yeah, well,
right.
you got no microphone.
Who's available to meet Saturday morning to sign all this stuff?
Sub-zero wind chills. It's better than going out on a sidewalk.
It's going to be cold.
It's gonna be cold.
We'll meet down at the town hall. Can everybody make it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is 9:30 okay, or is that too late?
9:30 good?
That's
It gives
good.
me time to have a cup of coffee.
Okay,
Is Ariane still on?
yes, she is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Think you can make Saturday morning?
I don't think so.
All right. Well,
So do we
we'll have
have a
1,
quorum?
2, 3. Yeah, we'll have 5 people sign. Okay, that's good. Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone to make sure you get your ethics test done and submitted to the town clerk.
Who's, oh, Mike did his.
I did mine.
Nice.
I did mine.
Brian did his. Ann did hers. Noel, did you do yours?
Can't hear you.
Forward. It's all set. I gotta send it out your way.
Awesome.
They send it to Larry.
It looks like I'm the dullard.
Yeah, I did mine right off the bat, but I don't think I sent it to anybody.
Yeah, I talked to Larry today. He wants to get a copy electronically. So if you just send it to Larry's attention, town clerk, that does the trick, right, Ann? Or do you want a copy too, Ann?
Oh, I don't need a copy.
Yeah. So Larry needs a copy.
And would like a paper copy of everyone's.
Yes. You want 4 copies, right, Ann? 4 copies for the file.
On 36 by 24 paper.
That is incorrect.
What scale is that?
I think that's good. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
Jim.
great
We'll
night.
see
Thanks,
you
Jim.
Saturday, 9:30.
9:30 Saturday. Got it.